Shoot. No! No, I'm the murder doer, exactly! Oh no! Oh fuck! Oh my god!
Jesus Christ!
Shit!
My slimes.
Hello, Willy. Oh, I have to meet a nice Willy in the pub. You want information on Gorodisha? Do I? Cheers. There was like a sudden kick. It was like a kick me in the tonsils. Is there something wrong with that hole? Die! God damn it!
There's nothing wrong with this Hulk, Jamie. There's nothing wrong with this Hulk at all.
End the night with the overriding taste of me in your mouth. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 24-hour podcast. No, it's not the 24-hour podcast. We were just talking about that. This is a regular, normal, less than that
Jamie,
podcast.
now that you've said it, we're live until tomorrow at 8 p.m.
Well, I'll call in sick then, I guess.
No, do your job while streaming.
Well, yeah.
Just go to work tomorrow, but don't turn the camera and the mic off.
Well, I'm working from here, from this desk, so...
So don't turn the camera and mic off.
Yeah,
Yeah?
fair enough. I'll use this setup. So
It's actually better.
It will just be us like sort of silently working on a video call together. Yeah.
Oh, but we still have to be just as entertaining and engaged as we would be for the 24-hour podcast.
No, I don't think so. I think we haven't done all the prep, so I think we just sit, in silent. I'll be listening to music that you can't hear on the stream, and sort of getting away with some work. Getting away with it? Just getting away with some work. Fucking robbing people of their productivity.
It's like 2 a.m. and we're just like...
I watched a little bit of the beginning of the 24-hour podcast the other day, and it starts like any other of our podcasts, and we're like high energy, and then I quickly jumped to like 3 hours from the end, and it sort of feels like between those two moments I've been hit over the head with a really heavy object. Like I'm like fully slumped into the chair, like speaking really slowly.
It's because you're like this as well, and you're like...
All right, Maddie, can I have a coffee? A coffee.
Thanks for coming. No, it's really good. It's really good. Thanks. No, good. How much longer have we got?
I've been off caffeine for like a month now, and I am wondering if during the 24-hour podcast is a good idea to suddenly be back on the caffeine.
Do you your C total, and then the podcast just brings it all back?
Yeah, no, completely off the wagon. Yeah. Hello, Welcome in.
Whereas you're caffeine free, I'm caffeine expensive.
Caffeine.
I'm
caffeine pro caffeine and pro caffeine choice. I don't know where I was going to go with that.
I am pro-choice when it comes to caffeine. I believe everyone has the right to choose whether or not they want to have caffeine or not.
Oh, well, thank you.
And
no,
if you don't,
I'm staunchly anti-caffeine now. I don't think that anyone should have it. I think it should be gone. I had a conversion, and I decided that because I didn't want to do it, no one else should be allowed to do it.
Fair enough. Yes. I'm interested in why Koto, are you the one despairing at the prospects of escaping the family home, or is one of us despairing at the prospects of escaping the family home? I don't know if there's something that I don't know about you, Jamie, that maybe you need to tell me about.
I don't need to escape the family home. No. I'm happily in the family home and set.
Are you recording?
No, I can do that. Would you like me to do that?
Yeah, I've started recording now.
Oh, have I? Jonas is live as a guest on my stream. That's nice.
I don't know how that works.
I might tune in, sack off this whole podcast shit.
There's a button here that says "Stream this video on your channel." I don't trust it.
They've added in a new thing as well where you can like merge your chats. So if you're doing stream together, your chat shows both your chat and the person you're streaming together with. Interesting. Might be useful for a future head to head. I would argue that you shouldn't just stream our chat to your channel. Because it will have none of the relevant stuff around it. I feel like
Oh,
it'll just
what?
be
As in,
it'll be
it's
just a
just you and me.
fundamentally worse viewing experience.
No, it'll be the purist's experience.
No
None of that.
distractions.
No UI. Yeah, no overlays, no extra information. Just because it's all supplementary. It's all unnecessary. Just raw boys.
I'm sorry to hear that, Koto. I hope that we can give you some levity by talking about us being raw boys, just classic raw boys. If you want raw boys, head to Jonas's channel. It's a wonder he hasn't been banned. Actually, if you did stream, they'd be able to see my little timer I set up.
Yeah, this is true, and they'd
be
able to see how little we adhere to it.
No, we adhered to it really well last time.
It's a new. I know it's a new thing, but I just love it. I just love that. Yeah, it's there. But does it really change our behavior?
It did last time. We kept to the timer. It absolutely.
We kept to the timer. We kept to the timer, and we added an extra 30 minutes of discussion into other subjects that were not affected by the timer.
That's not that. Yeah.
So we still find a way.
So that doesn't mean that the timer doesn't work. It means that we need timers for everything. Basically, what I need is a series of egg timers across the desk. And whenever we start a new segment, I turn over another egg timer.
You know how in timeline sci-fi shows, there's this idea that there are certain events that just can't be affected by the timeline.
Yeah.
We can implement time-saving measures, and we can implement all these different facilities to shorten our podcast. The podcast always comes out at 2 hours and 50 minutes. It always. Can't stop it from happening.
It was pretty amazing that every discussion came in pretty much on, if not a little bit over 5 minutes. It went really well. It was really smooth. It felt really natural. I thought it was really good. And then I looked at the time at the end, and yeah, it was 2 hours and 50 minutes. And I was like, fucking hell. What did we do?
I think we spent 45 minutes talking about Concord.
We spent 45 minutes talking about Concord. We spent a very long time talking about the Netflix randomizer as well. And I think this month we have 2 quite big game reviews and
it's all right. No other medium matters. Oh, I realised I haven't done something, Jamie. I haven't done something that I have to do.
Okay.
You know how we have to move things around in this bloody document of ours?
Oh, is it in the wrong place?
It's copying the August one. So then September it was TV. So today it should be movies first.
And games should be at the end. Okay, so we have a nice long reviews while we're at our sleepiest.
Games will be at the end.
That's a really good sensible way to do it, Steltech. But I quite like my a bunch of egg timers on a table set up. I think how many would you need? For each segment, you need a review 1, discussion, and then catch up. Review 2, discussion, catch up, and then others. So that gives you 7 egg timers for each of the 3 main segments. 14, 21 egg timers for the 3 main segments. Then another egg timer for randomizer, and then another egg timer for wrapping up. 23 egg timers, and then the rewind and intro is probably 2 egg timers. So 25 egg timers we need. If anyone can get me 25 egg timers of differing amounts, because we'd need to establish how long each segment is and have an egg timer of the right amount. I can't be sitting here just turning over a minute egg timer over and over and over again. That's not going to happen. So if anyone can help me with this, if anyone knows a bespoke egg timer maker place,
Jamie,
yeah.
what the fuck are you saying?
I was filling time while you were sorting out the document.
I tune out for 90 seconds to copy and paste some words, and I come back to you describing 28 egg timers.
25 egg timers, thank you.
You know what? That is more reasonable. That is a lot more reasonable. I'm sorry for accusing you.
Do you think you can get egg timers made at like a bespoke amount of time, or do you have to buy them off the shelf at like certain amount of minutes increment?
Do I think you can get them a bespoke amount of time? Yes, I do. I don't know where you start. I mean, I guess you start by Googling.
I guess you go to your egg timer guy, Jonas.
Yes, bespoke egg timers. Google promotional and personalized timers, Mojo Promotions.
But
Custom egg timer on Etsy.
But I don't want the outside. I don't care about the outside. I want it to have the right amount of time. That's the important bit. Because I can imagine that you can get an egg timer that looks like, Pikachu or something. But I want an egg timer of an exact amount of time. You can get those twisty egg timers that you can turn to the time you want.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm thinking sand timers. But you're right. Yeah. Yeah, you could get mechanical ones. But now I'm in a different mode. I just want to know if you can get sand timers made to order.
I imagine the answer is yes. You can get. Here's the thing: you can get anything made to order. You can get anything made to order. It's just how much money do you have, and how long is it going to take you to find that specialist, right? Because if it's made commercially,
what I'm thinking is like a website where you just go in and you just put a time, and they just send you an egg timer of that time.
And yeah. I know what you want. You want like like there are really accessible like business card printers or like custom T-shirt printers.
Yeah. Like
you
Vistaprint.
just want a really commercial but accessible and customizable egg timing
I
website.
want Vistaprint for sand timers.
Jamie, be the change you want to see in the world, buddy. All right, you could do it. You do it.
Start a business for print on demand sand timers.
Like, just the website's called Egg on Time.
Egg on Time. Well, but the thing is, they can't really be called egg timers at that point because they're not actually for timing eggs. Because if you have like a 60-minute sand timer, you're not going to use that for timing an egg at that point.
I think they're called egg timers because they're shaped like eggs, but you can time them up to an hour, right?
No,
like no one's cooking their eggs for an hour.
Sand timers aren't shaped like eggs.
What are we talking about,
I'm talking about like hourglasses.
I thought we were talking about egg timers.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I'm talking about hourglasses. But little ones for timing eggs.
James, start the fucking... No, I've got to do the countdown.
We can't start the podcast until you've done your bit. I'm thinking of hourglasses. JB. That's the word I'm looking for. But small ones can be egg timers.
I hate this. I just hate this idea that I bring you an egg-shaped timer and you go, "This isn't an egg timer," and you just throw it at me. And you're like, "This is an egg timer," and you put out an hourglass. Which I know what you're saying. Oh, the hourglass is used for 3 minutes or 5 minutes or 2 minutes, the amount of time you wish to cook an egg. I get that, but that makes it an hourglass for 2 minutes, not an egg timer.
Custom hourglass.
Oh, I guess
all hourglasses are an hour, right?
Well, get hour, yeah.
You can get empty hourglasses and fill them with your own sand.
I believe that.
They have a variable egg timer. What does that mean?
James.
Oh, you can just put as much sand in as you want, I guess.
But it's not an egg timer because it's an hourglass.
Mate, Our timers are hourglass. Well, yeah, but you could put enough in to time an egg.
I hate this.
Mate,
I don't like it. No, I
hourglasses
can't.
are so expensive.
Oh God. Okay, how much?
Let me sort them by price low to high. Okay, those are just tubes with sand in. Right, what do you think the cheapest you can buy an hourglass from this website? Bear in mind, it's on sale.
Like £40,
Nope.
£80.
$70, and that's down from $109.
Okay, well, $70 is about £40, Jamie.
Is it? Let's find out, shall we?
Yeah. Oh, okay, okay.
$69 to... It's £52.68, mate.
Oh, the conversion's pretty shit at the
You're
moment.
living in the past from when the pound was quite strong.
I
Not as
am
strong
living.
anymore.
I am living in a past, aren't I? Yeah.
You're living in a past, but where
God,
this
yeah,
where this
because
used to be a country. We used to be someone.
and now it's just a land of podcasts. Jamie, I'm gonna do a countdown. I'm gonna do 3, 2, 1, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You ready?
Yeah. Sorry, I was just looking at how much sand costs.
All right, stop it. Stop
Okay.
this now.
Okay.
This isn't. This isn't. It's almost 8:30.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
I'm gonna do 3, 2, 1, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
3, 2, 1, and 1,
One,
2,
two,
3,
three,
4,
four,
5.
five. I forgot I had to like clap or whatever. But...
Yeah, I'm just.
So you know it's the bit just before that.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll get there. All right, brilliant. Oh Lord.
I don't even have a TT.
Of course.
We don't,
Of course.
we don't have anything in the rewind, do we?
Not well. I'm sure I could make up something, but not right now.
I think. Anything good? Have I done anything I've done before? Really?
Mm, I don't want to give it to you, but I can't think of one for you because then it's not a surprise to me, and I like the improv.
Should we just get going then?
Yes.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this month's edition of the podcast. I am your co-host, James the Bunyip Man Willis, and I am here with my co-host, Jonas Teg Timer Garway. How you doing, Jonas?
Teg timer. Just to check, you said that right? Teg
Yeah,
timer.
I did. Yeah, it's so you
Okay.
can time your tegs. Get a nice boiled teg.
Yeah. No. I've enjoyed timing my tags. So far, my record is actually 52 minutes and 12 seconds. I think
Well,
you'll find that no one's ever timed their tags for as long as that.
you go for longevity, do you? It's not. It's
Yes,
not about
yes, yes, yes.
taste.
Yes, yes. Well, we're talking about a tag here, James. We're talking about a tag, and tags aren't all about flavor, are they? They're a fairly versatile thing.
Yeah. Okay, so what do you use your tags for?
Oh well, I've tried it for a number of different things. Furniture, decoration, accessorizing, flirting, murder. All the things that it's capable of, really.
All the normal things, absolutely. Well, I we can talk about tags a little later. Maybe we can recommend some of your favorite tags at the end of the show if you like. But before that, we got to talk about media. We got to do some media recommendations because this is a media podcast where we talk about movies, games, and TV shows. And this month, I am going to be talking about American Fiction. I'm going to be talking about Silicon Valley, and I'm going to be talking about XCOM 2. And Jonas, what are you going to be telling us about?
I'm going to talk about wolves, which I say on purpose like that. Dark matter, and my game is going to be Astrobot.
And later on, we're going to be talking about a documentary about corruption in the game of cricket, a film called Death of a Gentleman. But before all that, let's do some of our normal reviews, shall we? Shall we?
Yeah. All right. Yeah. All right. All
All right.
right.
Let's get it on, shall we? First up is me this month, and I'm talking about my movie. My movie this month is called American Fiction. American Fiction is an Oscar-nominated comedy drama from Cord Jefferson. As I think I saw it's his first film, directorial debut, and starring Jeffrey Wright. And it follows an upper-middle-class black American writer called Thelonious Ellison, who's struggling to sell his quite intellectual books. He's asked by his publisher if he can write a black book, a term he takes great offence to. However, tragedy hits his family, his mother is diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and he encounters another upper middle class writer who did write a black book. And in a drunken haze, he writes the most stereotypically black book about violence in the ghetto he can muster and submits it to his agent as an act of rebellion. And to his horror, it becomes a smash hit. American Fiction is a really interesting mix of heartfelt drama and brilliantly funny satire that asks some really interesting questions about the relationship between diversity and the art industry. Thelonious' satirical book and the fake fugitive author persona he constructs to sell it are really funny. It's a really excellent satire of what the media expects from authentic black media. The larger-than-life absurdity of those scenes contrasts nicely with the story he's facing in his real life, looking after his mother, trying to strike up a relationship with a neighbour, and navigating his brother's gay awakening mixed with a midlife crisis. It all feels actually real, complicated, and interesting in the way that Thelonious would argue black stories should be told. But it nicely questions his point of view in a way that opens up a dialogue about how we tell underrepresented stories while maintaining that art is a business. Is portraying the worst hardships of a group of people bringing to light their circumstances, or is it belittling them and entrenching the idea that they could never achieve anything more than that? Is making judging panels intentionally more diverse, empowering, or belittling? What is the balance between sticking to your guns and writing what you want to write versus writing something with enough entertainment appeal that anyone is actually going to buy and read it? American Fiction will not give you any answers, but elegantly displays why it will be hard to find any anyway. If I were to find any complaints, it's that it's a bit slow to get going. It starts off feeling a little cliche, but by the midpoint it flourishes into a really excellent film, even if it does have a couple of obvious Oscar bait moments slipped in. I always feel like I prefer Jeffrey Wright, and I also feel like I prefer Jeffrey Wright in his less naturalistic roles. He's good in this, but he's able to show off better what he can do elsewhere. Still, despite these points, I think it's a really lovely film. I'd recommend it to anyone interested in sometimes subtle, sometimes not, look at diversity in the arts and a satire of benevolent racism in America. Jonas, have you heard anything about this movie?
I'm very aware of American Fiction, and it's been on my I should watch that list for a very long, well, since it came out, and I haven't watched it. I when I saw that you were reviewing it, I went like, ah, shit, he's beat me to it. Because I knew that if I watched it, it would be something that I would bring to this podcast.
It's been on my list for a very long time too, and I was going to watch Civil War, and then I was like, actually, I want something a bit lighter, and I had it there. I was like, let's go.
Yep, no, no, absolutely fair enough. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that it appealed to you and that you enjoyed it after all the kind of hype has come down from its cinema release. Because there is always that worry that like, is it good because it's good, or did I just hear lots of people talk positively about it in a surge? And that's the only reason why I've heard about it. Nice stuff. So I'm just looking through. So I'm not very familiar by Cord Jefferson whatsoever.
No,
Is does this something?
like I said, I think it's his first film he's directed. So I don't think I don't think we have anything to go on for him.
Yeah, no, I'm just wondering if it follows like say any sort of trends, or if there's anything that it sort of follows on from that might be like quite interesting to talk about. Other than obviously, I mean, Jeffrey Wright even is fantastic.
Yeah, I
And
think that it feels, I think at its worst it feels like a quite classic like drama about race, in that it's it's sort of a bit sappy about his characters sometimes. Like there's a moment where his mum gives his sort of mum with Alzheimer's is sat in like a beautifully backlit hospital bed as she sort of gives him sage words of wisdom from a like that help solve his problem, and it's like this is very Oscar baity sort of like classic this kind of film, but not anything special. But I think at its best, um it's it's a it's just a very interesting look at like a um sort of picky American story of race, right? Like it could be way more bombastic, and it is in the sort of satirical bits where he's being this author, but like the core of it could be more bombastic and angry, and could be like very sort of like in your face about how awful white people can be to black people in America. And it isn't so much. It's actually more about like the the benevolent side of it, of people, white people trying to bring people black people up, but in a way that suits them, and in a way that like doesn't necessarily represent black people in the right way. Like a quite a complicated thing if you spend enough time thinking about it. This idea that like they want black stories of the ghetto because they feel like that's helping people out of that situation, but it serves more their own interests to feel like they're helping people than actually the black people they're investing in.
Yeah.
It's nice and subtle where it needs to be, and complicated in where it needs to be, in a way that doesn't automatically reveal itself. And so at the beginning, it kind of feels just like any other drama, and that's kind of what I mean by it starts slow and then builds into something.
Gotcha. Gotcha. In the meantime, I've just checked as well. Cord Jefferson, interestingly, wrote episodes of The Good Place,
Oh yeah,
which and Watchmen, the
I could
2019 show.
I could see a I can see a bit of that like interest in his characters. There's a like the way that Thelonius's family feels quite like they're comedy characters, and they're a bit bombastic, but it still feels like potentially real problems in a way
Mm.
that's quite appealing. Like they all feel like hurt, damaged people, but not in an upsetting way. And I think I think you can see the lineage from Good Place there, right? Like, you know, like nice characters you want to like, but who are also inherently problematic in some way.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And it's it's nice to see that someone's gone on from that writing and brought it to this story and told this story in film form. Does a film constantly kind of make you follow the perspective of just Thelonious, or does it let you kind of see the world around Thelonious from different angles? Does
um,
is Thelonious?
No,
Yeah, yeah, just
it's
a bit
all
about the
from the point of
perspective.
view of Thelonious, and I think that's an important part of it. Is that early on you're encouraged to relate to him and like kind of believe in his view of this stuff, right? Like that he feels it's absurd that he should be asked to write this book, and so you kind of agree. And there's like a quite funny scene of him writing the book while drunk, and then like two actors appear in his like study, and they're like acting the scene out that he's writing, and they keep looking at him saying, "What would I say next?" And then they carry on the scene or whatever. But as the movie goes on and he encounters more people and he sort of entrenches in his view, you get sort of counterpoints from other people, and those counterpoints like highlight how complicated this issue is. That like the
Mm.
initial gut reaction that this is a bad thing and you should fight it, I think you as a viewer mellow, even though Thelonious doesn't. And I think that's quite an interesting way to go into this movie. Like much later on, he has a conversation with this other writer who did write the Black Book, and the way she defends herself is quite interesting. Even it doesn't make him any less angry, and it doesn't make him any less entrenched in his point of view. But it gives you as a viewer a moment to be like, oh, hold on, am I so sure about my point of view now?
Gotcha. Nice. No, I like this is definitely something I want to watch over time, and I think it's definitely good that we don't go too much into like what the plot is or what the
Yeah.
resolutions are and things like that. Because yeah, I'd like to watch it someday.
I
But
recommend it. I while watching it, I thought this is something you would like, and I part of me did think maybe Jonas should have reviewed this because I think he would have a lot to say about it.
hey, yeah. If it has more JRPG characters and anime in it, maybe. All right. Well, James, lucky for you, you're going to get to sort of summarize your thoughts on this piece of media. Um, because I'm going to ask you to imagine, James, that are you're trying to tell a story. You're trying to tell a story that's impactful and important about podcasters, and you come up with this pitch, but you take it to your editors and your colleagues, and you're just laughed out the room. A book about a nuanced book about podcasters, like the reality, like how difficult it is to actually fit a podcast into a 2-hour streaming schedule, and the difficulties and struggles of Netflix randomizers. That's ridiculous. Get out of here. And in your anger and in your frustration, you do the only thing you know you can do. You down 7 Pret-a-Mange black Americanos, and you just let the caffeine write for you. You adopt this angry persona of someone who just goes, right, well, if you want a fucking serious podcast book, or silly podcast book even, here you go, here's one. And you make all these sweeping statements about how podcasters always lose their microphones, and how podcasters are always two guys in their 20s during lockdown that want to talk about sports and video games. And ironically, it becomes just a best-selling book. People love it. People love this view into the podcasting world that you give them. They really latch onto the characters. But the thing that really sticks with the world, Jamie, the thing that gets that basically becomes a slogan for the world for the remainder of the year, is there's this really interesting line you put in the book, and it's where a podcaster actually gives a one-line review of the film American Fiction. That line takes the world by storm. What was it, James? What was it? That one line.
The line was. Sorry, Aurora, please don't destroy. My cat has hopped up onto the desk for audio listeners and is attempting to destroy the podcast setup. One of those really relatable podcaster problems. A funny and interesting drama that will leave you thinking was the line. I don't know why they like that line so much. It's not that good.
but like, people are getting it tattooed. People are like getting like live, laugh, love. Like, they're taking that down and they're putting your words up.
Can you imagine having that written in your hallway?
Funny and I don't even remember what you said now.
That's how bland it was.
Yeah.
People are going to think you had a breakdown. All right. Well, that was American Fiction. Well worth checking out. Jonas, what have you got for us this month?
I'm going to bring to you the film Wolves. I say wolves because the film is not called Wolves. It is called Wolves. I'm not going to explain that any further. So, Wolves is a film about, it starts with George Clooney. George Clooney plays a fixer. He's the best at what he does, and no one can do what he does, quote unquote. He's called to cover up an accidental death that could threaten the career of a public figure, when at the same time, Brad Pitt walks into the room and starts doing the same job. What becomes apparently clear over time is that these two men are completely unaware of anyone else capable of doing their job, and that they distinctly dislike the idea of working alongside anyone else. But despite their complaints, they are forced to work together to fix the mess and solve a mystery. What makes Wolves instantly appealing is, I think, that it's the dry comedy of the situation and the chemistry, or like the intentional lack of chemistry, between Clooney's and Pitt's characters. Their constant attempts to undermine and one-up each other as they swing between on-show bravadoism and noir-like secrecy and distrust makes for a fun watch. Throw in some excellent light-hearted and slapstick acting from the likes of Austin Abrams, the supposed dead body of the movie, and you've got yourself, a good time. I think Wolves is pretty simple in its writing in set pieces. Classic moments from spy thrillers where partners might be expected to execute complex maneuvers in tandem with each other are sort of flipped on their head. See, Brad and Clooney do perform complex maneuvers in tandem with each other, and often they're pretty flawless about it. But the added flavor of that wasn't intentional, Like the moment where they look at each other and they're like, wait a second, how did you know to do that? Create some really kind of, I suppose, memorable comedy. There's sort of little details that I love about this film. It's the fact that these two men, like, they dress the same, they act the same, they ask the same questions. People bumping into Clooney and Brad constantly mistake the pair as these lifelong partners, to which they then have to stand there and defend themselves and remind each other that they've never met each other and that they don't work well to each other and that they shouldn't be in this mess in the first place. Not to mention, it's things like them sharing similar contacts on their phones, or the fact that they're just both men in their 60s and that their bodies tend to fail them on the occasion. I think it's those little distinctions about these characters and these little moments that they have with each other that really gives this film a distinct identity that, if it didn't have that, I don't think it would stand out nearly as much. I'd say that Wolves isn't a film that I would insist that someone had to watch, but I'd be really happy for anyone who decided to put this on during a quiet evening. Jamie, do you know anything about Wolves?
So the only thing I know about it was there was a bit of controversy around it because it's made by Apple Plus, and they did a bunch of like full cinema releases of their movies before bringing them onto Apple Plus, and they had promised that for Wolf, and then didn't do that, and they didn't do that because they've had a series of a string of movies that they've released on in cinemas that have done just absolutely dreadfully, and then apparently made up their money on Apple TV Plus over time, whatever. Do you feel like this film? Do you feel like that's a tragedy for this film? Do you feel like this film should have had a cinema release, or do you think it's kind of made for the TV?
Like, it's produced well enough that, like, it could have been on the cinema. I saw the trailer to this film, like, a little while ago, and I showed it to Mary, and we got quite excited about it. We were like, "This looks fun. This
Hmm.
looks like fun."
Would you have seen it in
So
the
I
cinema
think
if it was in the cinema?
I think we would have, yeah. And I think we wouldn't have liked it as much because there is something about being at home and seeing this on your screen and going, "Oh, let's put this on. Yeah, it's right in front of us."
Yeah.
Click, and watching it. I think if we had made a journey out and spent the money and kind of gone through the bravadoism of cinema, and then to sit down and have this, which is a fun film, but I think it would have been less impressive. I think I've got a more positive takeaway from this film because it kind of surprised me in the comfort of my sofa
Yeah.
rather than attempting to live up to my expectations in the cinema.
And do you think this is going to be a memorable film for you in the sort of crime spy genre? I mean, I guess it falls somewhere in between those two things, being sort of a fixer cleaning up after a job kind of thing. Like, how
Yeah.
does it compare to say like Mr. and Mrs. Smith, or I don't know if you ever watched Hitman, but the not the Hitman based on the games, the Hitman movie, it was
The one
recent
the
one.
one you reviewed
Um,
like 2 months ago, yeah.
like,
Um
is this going to be one that you remember? Is this going to be one that you talk about when you talk about this kind of genre?
I think it's a film that I will talk about a lot because, okay, so I have to kind of give you an anecdote here. I've recently started a new D&D campaign. I have made a character who is a noir detective. Big coat, big hat, happens to have a gun in his pocket, plays the kind of mysterious, like, sort of, quiet talker, like, I'm going to ask you some specific questions and I just want the answers.
Yeah.
And then it turned out that one of the other players in my group also made a character who wears like a cowboy hat and a long leather duster and wields guns. And we found out that we just like had way too much in common. And it made me, when I watched this trailer, I don't know which one came first, the D&D campaign or this trailer, but I intrinsically linked that experience of like, oh my god, like the idea that two men show up and they're like similarly dressed, but they actually find out that they're like overlapping on the Venn diagram way more than two people should. And I liked so I've ended up positively
Mm.
linking this film to that D&D experience. I like that. So I think this film will stay with me because it personifies this idea, this archetype of like two men showing up and them being a little bit pissed off that someone's just like them.
Well, that's fair, but I imagine that we can't manufacture that experience for all our listeners. So, I guess if I if I rework the question a bit and say, do you feel like this is a good example of a film that's playing on the conventions of the genre, and that's what's appealing to about it, or do you feel like it's setting the tone, that it may be something that other films look to replicate in the future?
No, I think it's drawing from sort of examples on the genre. It really doesn't do, apart from the character chemistry that I've sort of described.
Mm,
I'd say it actually does very little that's like exceptionally good.
mm,
It's fun throughout, it's fine throughout, and it's good sometimes. You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
that's kind of that is what this film is ultimately. But it is that actor chemistry. Like when someone pitched this, I think it was important that it be someone like George Clooney and Brad Pitt playing off each other,
I
and
think it
everything else just
is it not
facilitates their acting.
is it not made by? I think it
I
was.
don't. Oh,
Let me have a look. I'll have a quick look. No, it was directed by
I
John
can.
Watts. So
Yeah,
never
John
mind.
Watts.
Who's it
John
written by? Does it
Watts
say who it's written by?
says to me it's
Uh,
written by John Watts as well.
oh, okay. Oh well, I'm wrong then.
Um,
But
but
yeah,
he hasn't. He did Spider-Man: Homecoming, and that's basically the only thing of note that he's written.
right.
So, I would say like, all right, that didn't blow me away. Also production-wise, he hasn't produced anything that's blown me away. So yeah, it didn't blow me away, but I think like the chemistry between these two lead actors
Hmm.
is pretty much the selling point for this entire film.
Yeah, I saw a lot of the talking points I saw around it were, isn't it exciting to see Clooney and Pitt together? And yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I like them
It's
both.
it's it's nice to see them together, but the context that they act is fun. Like they gave them a good brief to act off of each other. I think
Yeah.
there is also, if you'd put them in any other genre, it might have been good, but this particular these characters that they play are particularly good.
All right, you are a podcaster and you turn up to do a podcasting job. You're like freelance. You get hired to do specific podcasting jobs, and you turn up to do a particularly dirty podcasting job, and there's already a guy there who looks exactly like you, who is already he's got the same job, and he's about to do the podcasting job as well, and you have to sort of like back and forth and try and get one up over each other over time, and eventually he looks like he might be doing it. He might be beating you at the podcast business. But you manage to squeeze out a one line review of Wolves that just knocks him to the floor. And what is it?
A film.
That's great. Love it.
I really struggled. I really struggled. I want to say something to the effect of lone wolves. I'm glad they're not.
Put it on the poster. There we go. All right, that was Wolves. It's an Apple TV Plus one. You can't see it anywhere else because they cancelled their theatre run. Lol. Um, all right.
Oh,
Let's speed on
what a
through.
great time we
Let's
live
head
in.
on through to the TV section. Jonas, you coming with me to the TV section? Ooh, here we go.
Yeah, I'll be there in a minute. I'll be there. You start without me. You start
All right,
without
I'll
me.
get started, shall I? Because I am very excited because I've been watching Silicon Valley, or should I say rewatching Silicon Valley? Because I watched it a while back and I really enjoyed it, and then I decided to rewatch it recently for fun, not for profit. I don't know what's happened to me. So Silicon Valley opens with Kid Rock performing on stage, and he's just about to finish a song, and the camera starts to pull back to reveal that he's performing in the back garden of a huge house, and absolutely no one there is paying any attention to him. Silicon Valley is a sitcom about the absurdity of Silicon Valley tech culture, from the excess to failures and the deep greed that prevents anything of worth getting done. The show follows Richard Hendricks, played by Thomas Middleditch, who has created the greatest compression algorithm ever made, allowing for incredible tech advances that before were thought purely impossible, and how the Valley does everything it can to take advantage of him and destroy his once-in-a-lifetime advancement. Silicon Valley pulls no punches. It's deeply cynical about the tech world and will appeal to anyone who once had a technologist spark in them that has been beaten out of them by modern tech capitalism. It's full of clever, interwoven stories about greed and corporate America getting in the way of real progress, covered in layers of knowing technobabble and promises to change the world. It has a fast and witty style of humour and trusts its audience. It's full of back references and layered gags that reward investment. And at its core, it's held together by a cast of enjoyable, weird, delightfully broad characters. From anxiety-ridden Richard, who is often the cause of his own undoing, to Erlich Bachman, the overconfident, self-obsessed tech investor who has lucked his way into anything he's ever owned, to Gavin Belson, tech entrepreneur and dreamer turned sociopathic billionaire antagonist. Its excellent core cast and brilliant set of side characters helps to pull it through as the pace of the plot starts to dip. Like many shows, Silicon Valley loses a bit of steam before hitting its final season, but I appreciate a show that knows where to end. And Silicon Valley does end at about the right point, I think. Silicon Valley explores the worst of the tech world through an enjoyable and absurd lens. The first couple of seasons of this show will blow your socks off, and that momentum will likely carry you to the end to see what happens to those sometimes lovable, sometimes deeply hateable characters. Jonas, have you seen Silicon Valley?
I've not seen Silicon Valley, and I don't think I ever really knew what it was about, despite knowing the name for a very long
Yeah.
time. For some reason, I think it's like, you know, the show Altered Carbon, like this serious sci-fi drama.
Yes.
For some reason, I think Silicon Valley is a serious sci-fi drama, not a silly comedy tech show.
It's a silly comedy tech show, yeah.
Interesting. Nice.
Yeah.
I'm surprised. So I'm just looking at it and I see it's 6 seasons long. Is this a show that you've been watching for a while? Is it a show that you've watched
Is
before
it
and you kind of just
6
like you
seasons long?
caught up?
I thought it was only 5.
Ah, well, I'm just looking at I'm looking at IMDb and it says that
Shit,
season
it's 6 seasons long. So I'm
did it have a
learning.
great ending and you didn't know?
No, well, I thought I was watching. I thought I'd not seen the final season, and so I've been rewatching it, and I got to season 5, and I was like, oh, I thought I hadn't seen the season, but I have, and I do vaguely remember how it ends. I was like, yeah, this was about the right point to end. Things were dipping a bit, like it was getting a bit slower. I think that's good. Now I know that there's a 6th season. I might have to rework that. I haven't seen this 6th season. I didn't know it existed, so
Oh,
I
okay.
guess we'll find out for that. So we can talk about the first 5 seasons.
Yeah. No. Fair enough. Fair enough. Because I
Yeah.
think, you know, when we talk about shows as well, it is like it's not easy to assume that like we're talking about every single season of a show that's got that many seasons, especially if you're like me and you're squeezing it in like 48 hours before podcast day. Nice. What are so this is a show that's like seems to be parodying some tech leadership kind of billionaire entrepreneur kind of vibes.
I
Does it feel like it's purposefully pointing at people in the real world at any point,
Definitely.
or like companies in the real world that's going, looking at you,
A
Elon
100%.
Musk?
100%. Yeah. So it opens with, so the intro sequence of the show is an animation of like a camera panning across a sort of isometric sort of video game looking city, which is the valley, and all the buildings are building up, and there's like loads of little gags about real life tech companies. So there's like an Uber and a Lyft balloon bouncing into each other, and there's like, you know, in the season 5 intro, there's like 5 Tesla trucks driving down a street and things like that. Like it is deeply enmeshed in the idea that people who watching the show understand this culture. Like the main antagonist, Gavin Belson, is supposed to be like a Steve Jobs kind of character. He was like there's a sort of gag throughout the whole first season. So there's an interesting little bit of thing here, which is in the first season they were clearly setting it up that Gavin Belson was going to have this relationship with this guy. I can't remember the name of his character now, but anyway, like there's this private equity investor who invests in Richard to get his company off the ground, and he's like a tech sort of hippie kind of guy. He's sort of like, you know, we'll figure it out. It's for the good of humanity kind of stuff. And Gavin's like this ruthless sociopathic billionaire who will like crush anyone in front of him. But you learn that they both like they started his massive company together in like in his mum's basement kind of thing, and they used to be good friends, and they're setting up this whole storyline where clearly we're going to have a conflict between them. And then the guy who plays the VC investor died in real life, and the story just diverts off of that quite expertly, quite well. And it has sort of this moment where like the this Gavin Belson character, the sociopath, it sort of reinforces his character that this could be a moment he could learn from the death of his old friend, and he just doesn't. And it's quite good at playing on real life, like what we expect of these people, but also has a deep understanding of the inner workings of these companies as well. Like a lot of the conflict heavily draws from the shit that people will do because of greed or how these companies work and things like that. Yeah.
Nice. And it's very much, it is, comedy seems to be the main genre here. Laugh out loud comedy, like big jokes, belly laughs, keeps you smiling throughout the whole thing. Like,
Absolutely, yeah. It's a full on sitcom. It's really well written. There's a lot of like really quick, nice gags to it. It's interesting because it's an HBO show, right? And it's so different to anything else that was on HBO at the time. I felt like HBO is mostly things like Game of Thrones and stuff like that, like really big dramas, and this feels strictly a comedy. This is explicitly a quite laugh out loud comedy. Yeah, no, I've been enjoying it as a background watching show because it is just like so punchy and jokey.
nice, nice. No, I want to make an effort to watch this at some point, just because it looks my humor. I can see a lot of video gamey references and kind of tech references in it that I'm sure would hit me hard,
I'd
in
recommend
all
it.
the
Yeah,
right ways.
I mean you're involved
Um,
in this culture as well, so you will get the joke. You'll understand who they're referencing when they reference stuff.
oh, I love the idea that I have no idea who they're referencing whatsoever.
You might do. It might be like old what Prince William on the Thomas the Tank Engine.
Is that guy important? Is that
Who's this
Was he
guy?
important? I don't know who he is. All right, fair enough. Well, James, are you are about to um you've just invented the greatest audio recording software for podcasts the world's ever seen. It's
Right.
so good. It cuts out all of the mistakes by itself. It's gonna let people podcast from, like, they'll say one word and the app will just generate an entire podcast based on that one word and like that person's vibe at the time of saying the word. You know what I mean? It's just gonna be so revolutionary. And it could change the world of podcasting completely, but instead, you're surrounded by a bunch of sort of, I don't know, hyper focused freaks who, rather than using it to generate podcasts, use it to generate I don't know, like recipes and tips for their favorite hobbies and whatnot. And you just discover that the environment that in which you work, this sort of podcasting environment in which you live, is just filled with these absolutely like narcissistic assholes who, rather than sort of turning your innovations into podcast enhancing technologies and tools, are instead just focused on dishing out the absolute worst of the worst out of your wonderful technologies. But hey, look, it's pretty funny. There's some really good allegories to famous podcasting people, like that famous podcaster, My Dad Writes a Porno, um, and that other famous
Can you actually not
podcaster,
name any famous podcasts?
the McElroy brothers.
Okay, good. Yeah, yeah, good.
Stephen Fry might be on a podcast
I'm sure he
once.
is. You could probably just name any famous person, I guess.
Yeah, the Jack Black podcast. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
again, this is a really perfect example of I live in this world and yet I know nothing about what's going on in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not like I played D&D for years and someone said, "Do you listen to Roll20, Critical Role?" And I went, "Who the fuck is Critical Role?" And that was like only 2.5 years ago. Anyways, James, you yeah, I really don't know if there's a key point that I can use. There's a really big storyline where it looks like you're gonna have this amazing relationship with a co-podcaster called Jonas, but then he dies, and rather than emotionally having any response to that, you just look deadpan into the camera and say one line about Silicon Valley.
uh, Extremely cynical, incredibly funny.
And then there's one season left.
Oh yeah, and I need to watch one more season. I'll come back. I'll do a rewind when I've watched the last season, and I'll be
Yeah, fair
like,
enough.
oh, it just goes to shit. Just the last season, fucking hate it. This is a tangent, but you know what has a last season is Westworld, which I reviewed a long time ago. It had a great first season, good, sometimes bad second season, a dreadful third season, and now they've released a fourth season. So I need to watch that and see, after the travesty that was the third season, why they would keep going, why anyone would keep giving them more money.
I'm always baffled about shows that like they start to tank because they're clearly milking like a dead horse,
Mm.
and then they're so desperate to bring that number back up that they just keep going and keep going. And Jamie, I'll tell you something. Season 4, Westworld, average episode scores are in the mid 8s and the mid 7s. And
Okay,
then the final episode is a 6.9. So like all right, back to a 6.
because the first series, like for me, 9 across the
Yep,
board. The second
yep. I think most
series,
people agree with that. Yeah.
some 9s, some 6s and 5s. The third series, solid 6, maybe a 7 occasionally. At that point, you just you pull the. It's such an expensive show as well. Okay. Oh well, I'll watch it. That's not what this review is, but it is another HBO show, so I guess that's the tangent. But yeah, we'll I'll watch it. I'll find out what it is. What it is that made them think that was worthwhile doing. But what we were actually talking about was Silicon Valley, so go check that out. 'Cause it's really good fun. And now Jonas, for your TV show, tell me, what are you watching?
I am watching right now while we are recording this podcast, and I'm not paying attention to you. Dark Matter. Oh, there we go. Just finished it. Wonderful. Okay, I'll talk about it now, I suppose.
Lovely.
My show, Dark Matter. So Jason Dessen, played by Joel Edgerton, is a physics lecturer. He is happily married to his wife Daniela, played by Jennifer Connelly, and he has a teenage son. He lives a comfortable life with his family, and well, nothing could possibly go wrong. One evening, Jason is being reminded of how he gave up a promising career in science to have his family, to sort of start his family, when when he is kidnapped off the street, drugged, and stripped of his belongings. When Jason awakes, he finds himself in a different timeline, forced to swap places with a version of himself that pursued his career in physics and discovered the technology to traverse different what if universes or timelines. So, as far as sci-fi thrillers go, Dark Matter presents a fairly familiar concept, and then it kind of explores that concept in a fairly safe way up to a certain point. Jason is replaced by an alternate universe version of himself and must convincingly play the role, that is to say, the replacer must convincingly play the role of husband and father to a wife and child that he doesn't truly know. Meanwhile, our main character, Jason himself, has to navigate a bunch of alternate timelines in an attempt to make it back to his home, his timeline, trying to survive unknown dangers as he does so. I think one of the things that Dark Matter does particularly well is in its early episode, in its sort of character introductions, it hints or alludes to characters having interests and desires in one reality. Someone might mention that they used to have a hobby or that they stopped doing that a long time ago, or they don't do that anymore because of another person in their life. And then in a later episode, through a different timeline, through a different reality, we'll see that character again, and without sort of being necessarily told, we will get to see that character living their life differently, and it will pull on a lot of the themes and ideas that were sort of hinted at earlier in the show, so they don't look at the camera and say, by the way, did you know that I used to be a painter and now in this timeline I am a painter. You're sort of able to see that character living out alternate results of their lives, depending on how things might have changed. Someone whose career might have been shaped by their mother in one reality might have them sort of be raised by their grandparents in another timeline, thus changing their career and their values. Jason's, the main character, Jason's own choice between career and family has an impact on those around him as they end up in different places, depending on whether or not he starts that life with his family or chooses to pursue this career in science. There are some realities where our characters visit that are completely dystopian. Sort of this is the real bread and butter of the sci-fi genre, I suppose. They'll go to planets that have a plague killing all of humanity, or to a timeline that have an early ice age or a collapsing star to really kind of bring it home. Whereas other timelines might be closer to reality, maybe showing you a timeline where politics are maybe sort of a little bit more stable and better choices have been made for sort of humanity and survival, or timelines where our character has maybe made some worse decisions, and that therefore makes it much harder for the main character to move around without unwanted attention. Either way, I think this show is kind of positively average for much of its runtime. It's a fine sci-fi show. It's a good concept, and it's well presented. The character drama is good. The acting is good. The fact that Joel Edgerton has to basically play very frequently multiple versions of himself. Often he flips between being an aggressive sort of wife cucking kidnapper to a slightly more wholesome victim and missing his wife lecturer. But for me, I think the show really took it up a notch when it starts to hit its kind of final 2 or 3 episodes. I don't want to sort of say too much about what those events are, but what I love is that the show takes the concept that it's built up, these alternate timelines, and really plays out the final events using its own logic in a fun way. And I thoroughly enjoyed seeing how that played out. This is another Apple Plus show, by the way, in case you've not heard of it. There's a lot of Apple Plus on my playlist at the moment. James, have you seen anything about Dark Matter?
No, I'd not heard of it before you mentioned it, but I'm interested. It sounds a bit like, well, in my head, I was thinking it sounds a bit like Everything Everywhere All at Once meets Doctor Who, but like with the alternate versions of yourself, and then the sort of traveling to different versions of Earth where there's a collapsing star and a plague and all that kind of shit. But actually, the vibes it gave me was that at least your description of it is that TV show. Can't remember the name of it now. Bodies, that's it. The one where they find the body in 3 different time periods.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in story, but like it does it feel that kind of level of quality of show? Because what I'm trying to get at is that Bodies was an exciting premise with kind of middle to good writing, that sort of that was good enough to drag you through the whole thing. Is the vibe of this that like the concept's really cool, the actors are good, and the writing drags you through, but isn't necessarily like standout, or is there more to it than that?
Um, no, I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head there. Like, this is a show where so it's a show that I think it's like 8 or 9 episodes in season 1. It's 10 episodes in season 1. I dare say that this would be a better show in like 7 episodes.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like it's got a little bit too much going on, and it's a little bit it plays around a little bit too much with some ideas. There are some storylines that feel like they should have just kicked in much earlier.
Hmm.
And like for me, a really big one is like the wife and child having this basically this imposter in their home, right? And that just felt like a really slow storyline for me because it doesn't go through any dramatic change very quickly. It should have what I would have liked it to do is breadcrumb like more suspicion or more threat or more like there being higher risk kind of moments in that kind of invasion to kind of keep that suspense going, or to have the wife be more suspicious but to have her suspicions constantly dashed because of clever planning from the invader. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, and so because that sounds like a bit of a pace problem. Is it that you spend like whole episodes with one of the Jasons and then whole episodes with the
no,
other, or does it flip between the two?
it flips between the two. It flips between the two. Like the two main characters are Jason Nice and Jason Evil, right?
Janus,
Jason, God, it's a mouthful. But
or a
like
mouthful of Janus.
Jason Jason Nice meets a woman who is in love with him, but it's not his timeline. So she follows him out of like a misplaced sense of romance, like a sort of a missed romance. And so these two end up navigating all these different timelines, and they have to like learn how to manage this. You know, they are basically in a sort of, I suppose, a TARDIS for timelines, right? Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
what if universes, but they don't know how to pilot it. Whereas Jason 2, he's running free in the real world, but he's mastered this technology. He knows how this works. And because he has got insanely rich and run his own tech company in World 1, he's kind of coming into this world with this like really unearned sense of arrogance and like
Mm.
bravadoism and sort of, I've used that word so many times in this podcast, I realize. But he's coming in with this really powerful sense of like, I can get whatever I want and I will have everything that I want. And so a lot of the show is about that kind of like that that drama that kind of comes from walking into someone else's life and asking for everything you haven't earned from that world. Like, he hasn't spent time in this world, he hasn't spent time with these people. So when he suddenly doesn't get his way, it's because he hasn't really built up any knowledge, he hasn't really built up any relationships here. He just expects things to happen kind of in his way. Whereas Jason 2 is like, sort of Jason 1, sorry, is shown to be like more empathetic and more kind of calmer and more patient. And, you know, he started that family because he had that kind of decision making process inside of him.
Yeah, it
It's
sounds like a
interesting.
nice sort of sliding doors, like that we all have in us the ability for empathy, but the circumstances of our lives can dramatically change that kind of thing. That's a nice idea to look at. Would you want more of this? Is this going to become is Dark Matter looking to become like Apple Plus's big sci-fi deal, or is it a bodies? Is it one season and done?
It's hard to say. It's hard to say because it sets up a premise that could go a lot of places, and it sets up other characters who I feel that their stories started and didn't necessarily finish. So if it wanted to tell more stories, I think I would have to use different characters. I think that's quite important. But yes, if it really wanted to do that, it might have to go look at that. Basically, there's a character who's like choosing to live in a bad apocalypse world
Right,
because they found the TARDIS too traumatizing.
right,
And it's like, right, well, what happens if they do go back into the TARDIS? Like, what are they looking for out of these timelines? Like, and what timelines do they choose to experience and look for? So that, there's a whole thing that they could do there. They've kind of accidentally built this expanded universe where it's like they could just tell a story in one of the many timelines that they've presented to us. I don't know that I would want that though. I think my favorite thing about this show was its quite clever final act,
right.
and that clever final act was so much fun. Like, I genuinely like got excited when I knew what it was doing, and I was like, "This is fun. This is really fun,"
Yeah,
and I was so excited to see where that went. Whereas I don't think they could do that to me again. Not in this show.
right. Cool. Well, it sounds interesting. I might even give it a go. Jonas, you gave up podcasting for a family. it was too much work, and you needed to have little bambinos, little Jonas and Jonasettes running around, and you didn't have time to podcast, so you quit on me. And one day you're in a pub, and I'm telling you how you could have been the biggest, the greatest, the baddest assest podcaster, but you gave it all up, and suddenly you're kidnapped, and you're taken into a world where you did continue podcasting, and yeah, it didn't really go anywhere. Like, we've been doing this for years and we haven't gained much traction, and that just carried on for the rest of your life. And you just, you didn't have that family, but you also didn't have a hit podcast. And because basically all of podcasting is people doing exactly this. So, there's no reason for them to pick us unless they know us personally in real life. But you carried on anyway. You took onto this role because you just felt you had to. Someone had to be doing it in that seat. This universe's version of me looked quite lonely without you there, and needed you to chat to. And one day we sit down and we're talking about you choose for that month the show Dark Matter, and you give a review, just like you just did. And you go through the whole thing, and when you get to the end of it, we have a bit of a discussion. I start the timer. It's 5 minutes long, but we go over a little bit, but it's fine because we were enjoying the conversation. And then it comes to a point where I start rolling into the one-line sentence review bit, and so I start off by saying that you gave up podcasting to have a family, little Jonas and Jonasettes, and as I'm saying this. As I'm saying this, I'm knocked out, and I get taken to a different universe, and the only way you can save me is with a one-sentence review of Dark Matter.
That's not quite the motivation you think it is, James. Yeah, okay. Keeps you occupied. Maybe a smile at the end.
Just imagine them putting that on the trailer. Dark Matter keeps you occupied.
New Apple Plus sci-fi television show keeps you occupied. Maybe a smile on your face afterwards. November 6th.
That was Dark Matter. You can also find that on Apple Plus. That's it for TV. Apart from the fact that I have been watching Lost with Laura, and I've been watching it for the first time. I've never seen it before. I didn't watch it when it came out or anything. But Laura wanted to introduce me to it, so we've been watching it, and I've not reviewed it because with a show with an ending as contentious as this one, I want to get to the ending before I talk about it on the podcast. But that will be like 6 months from now because every series is 24 episodes in it. But what I will say from this point, we're like halfway through season 2, or actually a bit less than halfway through season 2, is that I can see what people liked about this show, but goddamn, TV used to be shit. Like, I like this. I like this show. I genuinely like this show, but they had to write 24 episodes, 24 hours of show for each season, right? And I think there's maybe 8 hours of good content in each season. It's like watching old Star Trek, not old, but like the 90s Star Treks, right? Where they had to do so many episodes, and you're like, yeah, there's 3 good ones in that season. Did you ever watch Lost, Jonas?
I did watch Lost, and I'm scrolling through the episodes now, and I'm like, oh my god, that guy, that actor, oh my god, what happened to them? And I'm like, yeah. Now, what I don't remember is I don't remember, like, how far I got. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not really sure. I remember bits and pieces and vignettes and, like, whatever. But what really shocks me about this show, right, is like, okay, if we watched it now, would we really give season 5, episode 17 a 9.2?
This is the thing, right? It's that I remember other people watching it when it originally came out, right? I remember friends of mine being excited about it. The opening episode begins with an enormous plane crash, right? Except now when you watch it, it feels smaller, right? Because we've had like Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, like Severance, these shows that have like incredible budgets and they've learnt how to do prestige TV. That when you watch it, you're like, I know it felt really modern when it came out because people were really excited, but it feels kind of old and kind of small and kind of TV in a way that modern TV feels like movies. Do you get what I mean?
Yes, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just that the scale of the production has changed.
Yeah. Like there's so much of it that takes place in like clearly the same bit of jungle, but shot from different angles, with just people running and running and running through the jungle kind of thing. And a lot of the characters are quite cliched, and certain sequences are just really, really long because they have to fill 24 hours of this show. Like nowadays, they would get 8 episodes and they would be really, really good.
Do you think anyone has recut Lost into a shorter?
Laura suggested I did this. Genuinely, while we were watching it, I was making this complaint. Laura's like, "You should do that."
Because do you know that gets done for anime regularly?
I've heard that happened. Yeah,
and it's the best thing ever. It's the best thing ever when someone just takes like your old 2005 anime that was pretty good back then and just goes, "Hey, you know that scene where they repeat each other for 3 minutes and have 2 flashbacks and one guy screams? No, that's gone now. That's gone. Like it doesn't exist. They just say the words that matter and then the fight that happens."
I reckon I could cut down each episode of Lost to 30 minutes. Like I could cut half out of every episode. But that being said, I'm still enjoying it. Like okay.
What would you call that project? Like Lost and Found?
No, because it's not found. Lost, more lost, less lost.
Less lost.
Less lost.
I like that.
I'll just call it loss.
No T at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. But I am enjoying it, and I want to get to the end, and I want to experience what people experienced a decade ago, or over a decade ago now, I guess. And then I'll be on the podcast in 6 months, grumbling about how the ending of Lost didn't live up to my expectations, and I'm like, yeah, great, okay, good. Like we got over that a long time ago. Yeah. All right. We're going to take a brief break, but when we come back, we'll be talking XCOM 2 and Astrobot, as well as our random Netflix movie of the month, which is Death of a Gentleman, a documentary about corruption in Test cricket. So stick around for all of that. We'll see you in a mo. Right. I need to pop for a pee, so we're going to go straight to a break. But we'll see you all in a mo. Hello, Kev, by the way. I did wave. Hello. Yeah, we're going to see you in a mo, everybody. Stick around. See you in a bit. Right. Are we ready? No, apparently not.
Yeah.
Oh, no! Piss.
Oh, brightness up does brightness down. Oh, I'm holding it upside down. That's why.
If you've eaten an apple just before you drink piss, then it's still good. It's still good. You know it's good piss. Yeah.
The cars will be coming shortly. Get out of the road.
Oh. No. I forgot that. How do you know the key for that?
Okay. Sorry, Stu wants to laugh at this, but immediately choose it.
I'm someone who's very focused around comfort, and leather does not look good.
Oh god, I'm glad for the second half.
I am horny for rice pudding. Hashtag all boobs matter. So this is Launch Rocket. Oh! Oh my god, we're gonna die again! I've never been sucked so many times in one session. You don't have to be gay to examine the hit points of a nutsack. We're gonna take a brief break to fix this. Hammering away at those rocks.
Oh, hey laddie, I'm Scotland.
I think this is...
You see someone wearing that little purple logo and you know there's pussy about. Tom's souffle has collapsed, and so he's shanked David in a bit of rage. My YouTube apology will be up tomorrow.
Fully monetized, 46 minutes. 18 ad breaks.
We got to make some money somehow. I will not let you through. Detain. We fucking got it. Gulag. You done fucked up, my friend. Gonna get gulag and death thanks to me. No, just get permit. It's fine. Detain. Off to gulag. Now that man is going to gulag. Aha. Wrong. What do you have to say for yourself, you son of a bitch? Detain. To the gulag with you. Got any bombs? Well, that looks like a weapon to me. You have made a mistake coming in here. Is it so obvious? Yes. To the gulag, my friend. They don't look the same. Detain! Female? Female? Interrogate! Are you a woman? Please let me through. In the gulag! I have family to not feed. To the gulags with you! You're wasting my time. Aha. Wrong. Wrong. Detain! Passport is your ticket the fuck out of here. No. I'm not leaving. Detain! Oh! No, you fucking ain't. Detain! To the gulag! If nudes are bad, you will go to gulag. Detain? Detain. Well, that's different. I do not understand. Detain! Oh no, I thought that was wrong. I have no idea what you're talking about. Detain! Detain! To the gulag with you! Aha! You done fucked up. Detain! To the gulag with you! What's going on here? Detain! The gulags are going to be full today. Just in time for Christmas. Gotcha, you fucker. Detain! One last gulag to round off the day. Female? Detain? Detain! Gulag with you, my friend. Detain! I love the smell of gulag in the morning. Our first detention of the day. You're in. Oh, wait. Are you an international criminal? Wait. I almost missed my opportunity to detain. To the gulag! Oh, wait. Yes, criminal. I have nothing to say, but gulag! Calliston Cutthroat. This is how the pros do it.
Based on
no! No.
I would not.
Just trying to get a rifle.
Are you beating them to death?
No. This is how this is going now. Hello everybody and welcome back. I hope you're all doing alright. Sorry to hear that you're having a bit of a rough time, Koto. But,
Sending lots of love.
hope that you can get yourself a rest or a nice treat sometime soon. Right, let's get into it, shall we? You ready to get going again?
Oh,
We're doing so well. I've brought myself a glass of wine. Normally at this point we're a whole segment behind.
I got some Baileys.
Good choice. It's gonna get sloppy from here. Sloppy. Right,
Yeah.
you ready?
You're not tempted. You're not tempted by our new group catchphrase.
No.
You don't want to say sloppy toppy.
No, I don't want to say that. Not at all. Also, you describing it as our new group catchphrase when no one on stream knows what you're talking about.
Don't know what you're talking about. Me, Koto, Keb, Steltec, Bunyip Bot. We've all been saying it. We've all been going sloppy toppy, sloppy toppy, sloppy toppy.
No. Oh dear. All right, let's just get started, shall we? Let's just do some reviews
Yeah,
like we're
let's go on.
supposed to, like good
Let's
boys.
sloppy toppy this podcast.
Stop, Bill. Hello and welcome back to the Bunyip Review Podcast. We're in the games section and I'm up first. So I'm going to be talking about XCOM 2. So a while back on this show, I reviewed XCOM Chimera Squad as it had just come out. And I spent a lot of time comparing it to XCOM 2, but I never actually reviewed XCOM 2 on this podcast. And this month, I'm still getting an idea of what all the other games I'm currently playing are like, so I thought I'd take a trip down nostalgia lane, at least for me, and review one of my favourite games ever. The 2017 sequel to 2012's XCOM Enemy Unknown, itself a reboot of the 90s XCOM series, XCOM UFO Defense. XCOM 2 is a tactical combat game about fighting off an alien occupation as a group of underground resistant fighters. Taking the best parts of Enemy Unknown and adding many major improvements, XCOM 2 is a rare example of a sequel to a great game that is somehow even better. Right off the bat, the first thing that draws you in is its presentation. XCOM 2's resistance combat versus space aliens theme is pulpy and exciting. The game looks beautiful even today and has a brilliant, clear and creative visual style. Enemies look and feel how they act. Resistance factions' visual language allows for clear readability of sometimes chaotic battlefields. The core of the game is its tactical combat gameplay. Enemy Unknown simplified the old UFO defense gameplay down to a simple but visceral set of mechanics. XCOM 2 keeps this and adds plenty of new and interesting ways to interact with the systems. Enemy behaviours are understandable, allowing you to plan ahead, but complex and tactical, often forcing you into difficult situations. Soldier abilities are varied and useful, allowing you to come up with exciting and creative solutions to dangerous puzzles. The game rewards you for careful planning, but unlike Enemy Unknown, won't allow you to move slow and control everything. XCOM 2 adds a host of new objectives that are timed or involve rescuing civilians, forcing you to think on your feet and make risky decisions. The only thing that feels better than a plan coming together is taking a crazy risk and having it pay off. The game has a brilliant overarching progression leading to an epic climax and enhanced by a stellar DLC, War of the Chosen, that adds intense boss fights with unique weapon drops. This constantly growing and evolving campaign is enhanced by the ways that the game encourages story building around your soldiers. You're expected to name your soldiers, dress them up, take photos of them after missions. Soldiers get promoted, making them vital, powerful team members. They form bonds with each other, allowing them to work better together. They get injured, requiring you to have a deep roster of rookies ready to step in. They die in battle, forcing you to make hard decisions when faced with overwhelming odds. You get to know and like your soldiers, build little narratives around them, and it shapes the way you look after them in combat. I've legitimately had, when I play this game, I name all of my soldiers after people I know in real life, and I've legitimately had situations where two soldiers were in a situation where one of them had to die to save the other one, and I picked the person to die that I liked least out of the two in real life. that's how this game makes you shape these stories. XCOM Enemy Unknown was a great game, but XCOM 2 is a rare example of a sequel that's better in every way. From little improvements like being able to blow holes in roofs and drop people from buildings, all the way up to engaging resistance factions and intense new enemies. XCOM 2 is an example of true love being put into a sequel by developers who were only just getting started with their first one. I'd recommend this game to anyone, but mostly people who like to solve tactical puzzles and those who are okay with things going wrong. To succeed in XCOM is not to have a flawless run, but to be able to react when it all goes to shit. And I have never played a game where I've had more fun when everything is going to shit. Jonas, you played this game. I know you have, and I remember you having less of a good experience with it than I did. Tell me about your experience with XCOM.
My experience with XCOM is I put my soldiers in places and I make decisions, and then they all die. And then I have weaker soldiers to fight harder battles with, and they definitely die. And then nothing is good anymore, and the world is hopeless, and I just give up. um, Jamie, you said that you sometimes have to pick between the person you like more or less dying. How many times have you picked me to die, James? James?
I have never
James,
picked you to die. In
answer the
my
question.
the specific circumstance I'm thinking of is at the time it was a choice between my girlfriend at the time and a friend of ours from school. And
And you
I
picked a friend of yours from school.
to die, yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Well, for anyone captivated by that review, by the way, it's 95% off on Steam. It's £1.74.
XCOM 2 is £1.74.
XCOM 72 is £1
XCOM
and
72. Wow.
XCOM 2. They made so many while you weren't looking. XCOM 2 is £1.74. That's pretty good. It's pretty good.
That's
Yeah.
incredibly
So
good. Everyone should pick up this
I
game for that price. That's incredible.
so I know for a fact that I struggle with games that have like really harsh defeat
Hmm.
conditions. You know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, you failed. Oh, well, now the game gets harder. You fucking idiot.
Yeah.
I really struggle with games like that. Because I do like strategy. I do like making plans, and I love my JRPGs where a boss defeats me and I get pissed off, but I come back and I'm like, fuck you. I know you're gonna cast this spell on me, and I've actually equipped all the shit that stops you, and I'm gonna silence you, and I know exactly when you on your third turn, I know that's the perfect time to do this, whatever. Like, I love coming up with stuff like that and coming back stronger and more prepared and winning. But when XCOM 2 is one of those games that goes, oh, no, you don't get to come back stronger. You go back to base, weaker.
I think the best way to think of XCOM, the point that I started to really enjoy XCOM and it became maybe my favorite PC game, if not one of my favorite PC games, was I started to think of it more like a roguelike, right? So you are expected to have a bunch of runs where things go catastrophically wrong and you know you're done, right? But you're supposed to learn from those, and you're supposed to understand how you can prevent those things happening again in the future, right? By the time I was done playing Enemy Unknown, I could go into any mission and I understood the game so well that I knew I couldn't fail because I just understood the nuances of this game. And XCOM 2 does a really good job of throwing spanners in the works, like not allowing you to rest. You have to make risky decisions. It doesn't allow you to constantly play safe. But which really appealed to me as a long-time Enemy Unknown player. But I think that like learning to send rookies into battle more often with experienced soldiers, so that you never end up in a situation where an experienced soldier dies and you just don't have any more, right? That's something that comes with experience of the game. And if you think of it like a roguelike, that every death and every restart is a learning moment, I think that makes it more palatable than thinking this is my playthrough and as soon as something goes wrong, I fucked it, kind of thing. Do you get what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying. I guess part of me was like, you'd have this base and you spend time in this base and you'd upgrade all these rooms and you'd upgrade your command console. And I always felt like that was the campaign that I should be playing from start to finish. That if I redo this, it's the same as me starting over on a single player video game. You know what I mean? That's what I felt like. So
Yeah,
I sort of
I get what
I
you're
think
saying. Yeah.
yeah, and I think I would benefit from a game that kind of says like, okay, actually we do like there's a base and nothing ever goes wrong at the base. Like there's an alien invasion, sure, but if you go out and fuck up, I guess a little bit more like Darkest Dungeon 1, where do you remember it's like the town never suffers for your failure. It just means you have to go back to doing the basic bitch dungeon until your team are back to scratch, and then once your team are back up to scratch, then you can go try the harder dungeons. I
Yeah,
guess I want a game that
I think though that you can do that with XCOM 2. Like you absolutely can go back to grinding things out. I just think that like you're kind of expected to it is punishing if you play it through in this sort of Iron Man mode, but I think it's designed in that mold, and I think it's designed like I see what you're saying about Darkest Dungeon, but think about Darkest Dungeon. When your best guys die, yeah, you can go back and you can start being like, okay, I'm going to grind out all these things again, and I'm going to try and work it out. But realistically, you might end up just going, fuck it, just start again. Like I'll start again from scratch and we'll go around again, rather than having all these guys that are just blasted to hell with like depression and shit like that. And I think that XCOM 2 encourages that like that roguelike learning aspect to it, that like you that the more you play it, the more you understand about the game, the less painful those deaths are, the less difficult it is to recover from those problems, rather than just softening out those bumps at all, rather than just saying like there's always a way of recovering it, or there's always like a home base that you can feel safe in. Instead it goes, no, you did fuck up, and you did genuinely put this in a situation where you're now just grinding it out to the end, but that's a learning experience. Next time you play, you won't have to worry about that, or not you won't have to worry about that, but you'll understand how to encounter that. And I think that those later run throughs where you do really understand that shit, you feel like a tactical genius, because you go into situations and you feel like you've gone through the training, like you've gone through the SAS training, and you know how to like cover angles and work people all the way up to the end.
I think a big part of it is one is I just never gave the game enough time to kind of teach me that.
Yeah.
I'd get to one major mission, I'd fail the major mission like abysmally, and I would just think like, well, how was I supposed to succeed? Oh my god! And then I would just, I'd really struggle to go back to that game. But I have, of course, played since then Marvel's Midnight Suns, which is the latest game from the same team.
Yeah.
And obviously that game does take a much softer approach to defeat, where it's like, all right, your team levels up constantly, and if they fail, they get wounds, which means you can't pick them for a while, so pick some other team members. But that's more narrative. So Wolverine never dies, Iron Man never dies. You have to keep telling the story with these characters.
And they did the same thing with Chimera Squad, the sort of spin-off one they did. They had named characters, and if you failed, if one of them died in a mission, it failed the mission, and you went back. Like you had to load a previous save, and I get the point of that, but Chimera Squad really felt to me like it was missing something. It really felt like it was missing the storylines, that all of these soldiers were part of a larger story rather than like super characters. They weren't superheroes, they were soldiers, and they would die, and their deaths would shape the stories of the other soldiers and the story as I went forwards in a way that Chimera Squad didn't have for me. But yeah, I think that I know we've got to move on, but I will say that like if that's how you feel about this game, I think that I don't think that playing more of it is necessarily going to get you over that. And I mentioned as well that that it has a major DLC called War of the Chosen. I think War of the Chosen is one of the best DLCs for any game ever. I think it's incredible. But what I will say is it, if anything, makes that thing you're complaining about worse. Because early on in the game, it adds in a boss fight where almost certainly one of your best soldiers will die, right? Unless you're very, very good at the game, you have to fight a very brutal enemy very early on as like a here's what the DLC is about kind of moment. And if that's not your kind of gameplay, then you're going to hate it. But for the people who love it, it's one of the most thrilling things that a game can do. Yeah.
I think, part of me is like, okay, I'm older. I've played more video games. Maybe I've got a different disposition. I also know more about good game design, good game ideas, and I know more about this game's identity than I have, than I might have appreciated when it was first played. So I think like part of me could play it now and actually be more patient and be like more like, okay, let's appreciate, like, let's fail forward, like let's learn to fail forward. Which is a little bit like I got turned off Darkest Dungeon 2 because like I just had this really bad run where I was like just frustrated at how badly things were going for me. But I know that game is great. I know it's a great game, and I know I could love it if I like was patient with it. So I'd like to go back to it at some point. I've also discovered something else very like key about myself, which is if I do badly at a game in isolation, that's kind of fine. That's like, there's no problem with that. If I do badly at a game while someone's watching me, oh my god, the genuine psychic damage it does to me. Like, my mood gets really affected by like people seeing me do badly at this thing.
Yeah.
And I hate the game 10 times more because someone is watching me fail
Yeah.
than if I just failed in isolation. And I've noticed this about myself. Like, if Mary's sat there watching me do like a really hard boss fight on, like, you know, Final Fantasy recently, and I get a game over and I just sit there fucking seething. Whereas if it was just me by myself, I'd just be like, all right, okay, well, I know he's going to do fire now, so I'm going to equip some fire stuff. And it just, yeah, it's just really interesting that like my brain does that to me.
Well, look, if you intend to give it a go at some point, play it, and you play it in secret and no one knows you're playing it, you can
That
message
has
me
to be
and
the
I'll
way,
give you
yeah.
some tips. Because the last time I played it on one of the charity or the mutual aid stream, and I hadn't played it in years before I started playing at that. And mate, it feels like I went through I went through training for this game. Like, as soon as I sat down and I was thinking, I knew how to deal with different scenarios. Like, I knew how to keep people alive. I knew how to progress through a building and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, I have played so much of this game, it's fully ingrained in my brain. And I think that's the joy of it, I think, is feeling like you can become an expert in something which is quite complicated. One of the things that people often complain about XCOM games is the random element of like aiming and things like that. If you played the game enough, that does not matter anymore. Like, it's so interesting how different the experience is when you're learning to when you know the game. But yeah, look, we talked massively at length about XCOM 2. I could talk forever about it, but we probably should move on.
Well, it's one of your favorite games, so you're allowed to have that extra leeway with it.
Why,
But
thank
James,
you.
enough. Jamie, you're a poor little soldier woldier. You're a poor little soldier woldier, and you're fighting the war against podcasts. Podcasts are invading the earth, and you're part of an elite squad chosen to take them down. You head out into the battlefield with your super warriors. It's time to save Earth. You used to take it nice and slow. You used to be able to play defensively when these podcasts landed on Earth, but not anymore. They've taken television hostage, and they've taken cinema movie films hostage, and all other forms of entertainment media, and you only have timed limits now, so you have to run in, you have to take risks. Sometimes you gotta snipe a podcast with a bad review. Sometimes you have to snipe a podcast by uninstalling their Audacity, etc. And you think, oh boy, this is all going really well, isn't it? And then one incredible podcast lands. This boss podcast lands. It kills one of your crew members, your favorite crew member, Jonas T.T. Garway. You go, no, Jonas T.T. Garway, no. And this absolute boss looks at you. It is, of course, it is a podcast called The Bunyip Review. You load your only bullet into your chamber to kill it. It is a one-sentence review of XCOM 2, and you shout it out as you fire this bullet down this alien's throat. What do you scream, James?
Maybe the best game?
So opinionated, but it dies nonetheless. Like, it says nothing about the game, but just maybe the best game.
Well, it encourages people to buy it for £1.74. There's no reason you shouldn't buy this game. Like, anyone who's listening to this right now, like, buy this game. The offer ends 7th of October. You've got, I mean, if you're listening to the audio version of this podcast, the offer ends 6 months ago. But but if you're listening to the video version right now, buy that game. It's so good. That's XCOM 2. Everybody, just buy the game. I was just looking at my playtime for these games. So I have 213 hours in XCOM 2, 52 out of 88 achievements. I have 119 hours in XCOM Enemy Unknown, 59 out of 85 achievements, and then Chimera Squad, which changed it to the like characters can't die mode. I have 17 hours in that game and 10 out of 40 achievements. And admittedly, it's a shorter game, but like, yeah.
Well, you have oh god, I just realized I opened Steam and a download started, and that completely killed my bitrate. You have more hours on your least played XCOM than I have on XCOM 2. That's for sure. Um,
Well, there you go.
oh god, I'm
Look,
getting
you-
distracted. Right, no,
Jonas,
not
you
worth it.
can't comment about XCOM 2 until you've played 200 hours, I'm afraid. So I would like you to play that much, and then we can revisit this.
Jamie, if you make it your game of the year for the Bunyip Awards next year, there's a conversation. But otherwise, you can't do shit.
Oh, shit. I mean, that's an interesting conversation, right? Because, and not to completely derail us, but we've been quite pacey with the podcast this month, so I feel like I can derail us a little bit. There's more to think about when picking your game of the year than just how good the game is, right? Because obviously, I can't play PlayStation games, and your game this month, from a brief glance at your review, would probably be maybe your pick for this year. So does it make sense for me to, even though I think this might be the best game, I don't know if that means it should be the game I pick. Despite being the best game, I might have to pick a game that came out more recently or is more relevant. What do you think?
I mean, it's going to be. I feel like it's what are your politics and ethics on the situation, James?
Should I
what
pick
are
the
you
best game or should I pick the best recent game?
Well, I picked Hollow Knight, didn't I? Like last, sort of some of
When
that,
did
and that
Hollow
was me
Knight
replaying a game of a different year. Yeah, when did Hollow Knight come out?
It came out the same year that XCOM 2 came out.
Nice. So I'd say there's a precedent there. Like for me, have you played XCOM 2 this year? Like yes.
I have.
If you're reviewing it sort of based on that experience, like for me, yeah, I played all of Hollow Knight and then reviewed Hollow Knight.
Okay.
I think that's very valid.
I think XCOM 2. Unless something amazing comes my way over the next couple of months, I think XCOM 2 might be my game of the year, guys.
All right, well, let's not spoil it. Let's let a little bit of leeway, a little bit of
Sorry.
leeway.
It might not be, but I did describe it as the best game. So,
James, don't you think that your other great game of the year could be something like you actually haven't played anything that bad this year.
no, but before I reviewed XCOM 2, my game of the year would be a game on your list. So
yes, it would be, wouldn't it?
yeah.
Yeah, because I'm looking at your list. It's like, right, Helldivers 2, Chance of Sinar, it's pretty good. Bellatro, a lot of people like that.
I've got a good list this year. I was looking at it earlier because in previous years I've gotten to the end and I've had to pick. And I've been like, I wouldn't pick any of this in any of these categories. And so this year I intended to specifically get like winner candidates in every category, and I think I've got like decent candidates in every category. I think.
Nice.
I think.
Well, before the year ends in December, I'll play some bullshit anime dating sim, and I'll review a bullshit anime girls movie, and my film will be anime boy gets the power of God and fights gods, and then I'll just say that that's my best. Those are my three best, and that'll be it.
So I like that.
Because my politics are corrupt.
I'm talking about like trying to make my pick so that it makes the most sense for like rewarding people for the things they've made and all this kind of stuff. And you're like, how can I fuck you over the best using this system we have created?
Yes. Yes. I mean, don't get me wrong, Jamie. Okay, the game I'm going to talk about today, I do like it a lot. The game that we are talking about that you also like, that is very good. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, that is very good. Alan Wake 2, holy shit, that is a very good game. And I'm going to play one other incredible game by the end of this year because it's coming out this month, and I can't wait.
Well, you don't know
Jamie,
it's incredible.
There's a lot of bullshit.
It's not
There's
out.
a lot of bullshit.
We don't count our
you.
chickens till they've hatched, my friend.
Tekken 8, James. Play Tekken 8.
Fuck me. If you pick Tekken 8, Jesus.
Tekken 8, and you have to land a 10-hit combo with every one of the characters before you can say you've...
Is Tekken 8 going to be on PC?
Yes.
What's a one hit
came out
combo? You just
a 10 hit combo.
Oh, 10 hit combo. Okay, I was gonna say one hit
Yeah.
combo. You just punch him.
Every
Go-
character's got
Load up every character. Punch. Great. Done. Next. Punch.
That's still more of the game than you would play if I didn't put that limitation in place.
Is Tekken the one with the bear?
Yeah, and a panda.
I played a lot of Tekken back in the day when I played it with a friend of mine from school. He used to bring Tekken over, Tekken 2 or Tekken.
Yeah, that is one of them, definitely.
I had a picture of a man doing this on the cover, and he would bring it over and we'd play it on my. I can't even remember if it was a PS1 or a PS2 game. I hated
Right.
it. It was awful, but it was something to do. You know, it meant we didn't have to talk to each other. And he wasn't a good conversationalist, so you know.
And now his name is Jonas. All right, James, we are way off topic. Ask me what game I'm reviewing this month.
Jonas, what are you reviewing this month? Oh, sorry, my game was XCOM 2. What are you reviewing this month?
I'm going to be reviewing a game called Astrobot. Astrobot is a PlayStation 5 exclusive adventure platformer with similarities to Mario Galaxy and Crash Bandicoot. The game starts with Astrobot and his Astro buddies partying it up in their PS5-shaped spaceship until it's attacked, ripped apart, and plundered by a mean alien. The PS5 crash lands on a desert planet, and it's up to Astrobot to save the day. Gameplay involves running, jumping, punching, and generally interacting with anything that might be helpful as you fly around the galaxy, landing on planets, playing through a level, saving your Astrobot friends, and slowly piecing together your PlayStation 5 spaceship again. As you save more and more of your Astrobot friends, you'll unlock more levels, more challenges, and generally be given more game to play. The concept is simple enough, but the real shine to Astrobot is in the details. Your double jump involves you hovering for a second while you shoot lasers out from your feet, and these lasers can be used to defeat enemies and solve puzzles. Everything in the environment is responsive to your actions. Walking through grass looks and feels reactive as every single blade of leaf lights up and moves as you touch it. Hitting a tree will drop coins and often other random objects, and birds will fly from the tree, or a snake will fall down and then coil back up. The scenery is littered with these like physics enabled objects like autumn leaves or fallen apples or bouncy balls or scattered gems. Every element of the video game is a sensory treat, especially when you take into account this is one of the few games that makes use of the PlayStation 5 controller's haptic feedback, making it so that every single little tippy tap of Astrobot's toes can be felt in your controller, as well as other elements of the game. And then there's the levels themselves. They're fun and diverse. You can jump into a singing tree's mouth while it tells you about the evil birds nesting on its head. You can slow down time as you jump on flying poker chips in a casino. You can defeat a short-sighted octopus in a boxing match. You can beeline it to the with most levels you can sort of beeline it to the end in about 2 minutes, but you'll spend like 20 to 30 minutes in a level because you'll just be looking around at all the detail. You'll be interacting with all the objects they put in your way, and you'll be looking for secrets and collectibles while you go. And then there's the fan service. Astrobot isn't just a great platforming adventure game with visual and mechanical polish. It's also a massive love letter to everything that has come before it. Of the 300 Astrobots that you save throughout the universe, over 100 of them are cosplaying as mascot characters from games that have previously been on the PlayStation. Metal Gear Solid, God of War, Parappa the Rapper, Tomb Raider, Tekken, Infamous, Oddworld, Ratchet and Clank, Ape Escape, Sly Cooper, Fall Guys, Little Big Planet, Octodad, Resident Evil, Katamari. It's all in there. And these mascot characters are scattered through the levels you'll play, some in plain sight, some in hiding. When you find them, you'll be given a splash screen with their model, a fake name, and some blurb about them, which is often a cheeky little sort of nod to their franchise. For example, there's a character called the Patriotic Porter. Successful deliveries are a real balancing act. And that is, of course, Sam Bridges from I forgot the game name there, Death Stranding. And if their 3D model isn't enough of a fun reference for you, once you kind of catch them and take them back to your base camp, you can spend coins to give them objects that give them unique animations. For example, like Dante from Devil May Cry goes from standing there idly and looking cool to suddenly juggling an enemy in the air with his toy guns and iconic sword combos. And I'm going to try very hard to not go on about it, but the music, holy shit, the music is incredible. I've listened to that stupid tree song about a dozen times, but even some of the less memorable levels end up sticking with you simply because they have an amazing soundtrack that goes along with them. Some of the levels that you'll play through have these unique gimmicks or items that you just won't see for the rest of the game. For example, there's one level where it's sort of like a Japanese hot tub theme, but you turn into a sponge, and when you jump into the hot tubs, you soak up all the water and become giant, and then you can shoot out that water to cool down lava or defeat enemies. Whereas elsewhere, you'll have jetpacks that can smash through walls, or you'll be able to turn into an iron ball that rolls over spikes, or you'll be able to carry around a light bulb to see invisible platforms and defeat ghosts. Every single level starts with you piloting a PlayStation 5 controller onto the planet. And in those short sections, you're able to tilt your controller left and right to sort of pick up coins and get bonus objects just before the level starts. And then at the end of the level, when you've caught all your buddies and you're ready to leave, they'll all grab onto the PS5 controller and look at you, the player. They'll look behind them at the screen and wave their arms saying, "Come on, let's go," bidding you to press L2 and R2 to launch your controller into space. But if you do it with the right timing, you get more bonus coins. And then there's just the fact that sometimes whilst you're flying around space, you can find secret collectibles and you can find challenge levels that play very differently to the main game. There's a bit where you're in the God of War level and it has this bass drop, but the bass drop is timed with Kratos just saying the word boy. It's all these little things that come together that just easily make Astrobot one of the most delightful games to play this year. And even though it's stuck on the PlayStation and it is basically a PlayStation mascot video game, like I sincerely hope that there's a way for more people to just like lower the barrier on this game and sit down and play it, because it just is a fun video game. You could recommend it to everyone, and I just don't think there's a single person who wouldn't see what joy and entertainment this game brings. Jamie, you don't have a PlayStation, so I know you're not playing Astrobot, but have you seen any discussion or content or YouTube videos or whatnot about it?
We raided someone who was playing it the other day, and they sort of briefly took me through it. It sounds right up my alley. It sounds exactly my kind of thing. I love those. Like, I grew up with a PS2, PS1. I loved me old Crash Bandicoots, me Ratchet and Clanks, that kind of jive. Do you think that how important do you think is the PlayStation branding? Because the PS5 shaped spaceship and the PS5 controller shaped drop pod sounds a bit gauche, maybe is the best word, a bit like, in your face kind of thing. And the how sort of fundamental is all of the PlayStation branding and characters and that kind of stuff? Do you think it would be just as good without that stuff, or is that a fundamental part of the appeal?
I think it's a fundamental part of the appeal. With the characters of obviously a lot of those characters have made it off the PlayStation, so they're kind of a delight to see, even if you're not a PlayStation fan, right? Like you can appreciate Horizon even though you don't own a PlayStation because that did come to the PC. You can appreciate Persona, you can appreciate Tekken, you can appreciate SingStar because that's on different platforms, I think. You can appreciate just like all of these game franchises that, yes, they were on the PlayStation, and that's what they're trying to say with all of these inclusions, but they could have easily made it onto another platform and you could love them for another reason. But like Astrobot, its identity is heavily sort of, I don't know, embedded in the PlayStation. Like Astrobot has become a mascot character for the PlayStation, and these games have become a real showcasing for PlayStation to kind of show like who they are, especially in this landscape where Xbox have basically walked out of the console war and said we're not going to play this anymore. Nintendo just live in their own corner, so they're hardly a competitor. So now PlayStation has to completely alone, more or less, justify its own existence to the rest of the world. And like Astrobot does a really good job of reminding you like what PlayStation has been. It doesn't necessarily convince you that PlayStation will be great. It doesn't necessarily convince you that like PlayStation has a lot going on right now, but it definitely gets you kind of excited for like what has been, and I love that element.
Do you think that do you think that this game will make it off the PlayStation? Because a few PlayStation exclusives have recently, but and they're starting to ramp that idea up more. But this sounds like it's fundamentally tied into the idea of being on a PlayStation.
I worry that I think it won't, and that's sad. I find that sad that it won't leave the PlayStation.
Do you? Okay, so do you think that this gives you something that, say, playing modern Crash Bandicoots doesn't? Like, do you think that those of us who don't have a PS5, do you think that we can get a similar experience elsewhere, or is this a fundamental experience that we're just missing out on?
I wouldn't say that it's like fundamentally different, but I would say that it is a masterclass at its own experience. Like
Yeah.
it is the best of its own genre. You can go play Mario Wonder, and that probably brings you quite close as well. But a lot of Mario heads will agree that Mario Galaxy was like the best of its type.
Mm.
And this is like PlayStation's Mario Galaxy. Like it is the best of its genre and its kind of platforming adventure game, especially in our current console generation, where there are so few of these anyway.
Mm.
But this is of a high enough quality that you can compare it to the best of 10 years ago and say, holy shit, like, yeah, this is it.
And do you feel like does this game feel expandable? Does it feel like they're going to add more planets with more characters in, or is this a condensed experience? Like, are we going to see an Astrobot 2, or is Astrobot a platform?
Well, for one, they just released 5 new levels that are speedrunning levels, like challenge levels, and they just added Hell Divers and something else. I think they added Stellar Blade into it. So they've just added, they are adding characters and collectibles to it, and they are adding levels. And I dare say that if this game gets DLC, everyone who played the base game will buy the DLC. Like I think that will be kind of be a zero hesitation purchase for a lot of people.
Mm.
So
It, it,
yeah,
it's,
I can see it being a platform for a bit.
that's because it assuming that the the gameplay is timeless or stays present. Like it strikes me as the kind of game that could be like basically like a virtual showroom for Sony properties, right? That like it's a fun game, but it also you go, oh yeah, God of War, or oh yeah, Helldivers, or things like that. And then maybe it's worthwhile just keep adding free updates to it because every one of them bumps up the sales of some other thing further along.
I mean, there is an element of this where not only did it make me excited for franchises past, but it made me curious about franchises that I'd never touched before. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm.
I'd just see a character standing there and I'd be like, who is that? Who is that? I never played that game.
Yeah,
And
it's
then
Gurg.
later,
It's Gurg from
oh,
Gurg's Adventure. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Or, oh God, I'm trying to remember all the other ones. Splurm, or
Plum. Super Plum.
anyways, we're making an unnecessary reference, but it's yeah, it does have those moments where I am just sort of looking at someone, I'm like, oh, that was like a PlayStation 2 game that I never played. Or like, do you remember Infamous, the game where you can get lightning powers and you can be good or
Yeah.
evil?
Yeah.
They
I
made
remember.
loads of
Yeah. I
go on.
do remember that game.
Well, it's just, they made sequels where you can play someone with the power of neon or someone with the power of like fire and smoke. And I never played them, but like, oh, I probably would have enjoyed them if I played them. And
Yeah.
this game kind of reminded me that they exist.
I
Nothing more than that.
Every now and again I get reminded Infamous exists, and every time I get reminded, I think, oh yeah, that does look like the kind of game I might like.
And then move on.
Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely fair enough. And it's like Astrobot's not really invested in making you care about those things. Dare I say, like, Team Asobi, the creators of this game, like, they don't really give a shit whether or not you like the PlayStation. They made a great game. and
Yeah.
it is the PlayStation's child. Like, it is their mascot character from now on, easily. But I just don't think that that's really their mission to care about that.
I want another Ape Escape game. Is there an Ape Escape themed level in this game?
Yes. Okay. So there are 4 major quadrants in this video game. Do you know what I mean? Like, there are 4 boss fights, and
Right.
after every boss fight, you meet a character from a flagship PlayStation franchise.
Right.
There's 4 of these. God of War's one, Horizon is one, Uncharted is one, and Ape Escape is the other one.
Of course.
And you get a whole level where you get a net and you have a little compass that tells you where all the apes are, and they all run away from you in different ways, and you have to catch all the apes.
Ape Escape, I'm not afraid to say this, might be the greatest PlayStation game ever made. Like,
Fuck you, XCOM 2.
XCOM 2 was not a PlayStation game.
Yeah.
XCOM 2 is the best game ever made, but Ape Escape might be the best PlayStation game ever made. Are you looking up if it was on PlayStation?
It might be. It is. You can buy it on the PlayStation Store.
Well, I don't agree with that. You shouldn't play those
Okay.
games on console. But Ape Escape might be the best first-party PlayStation game ever made. There we go. That sorts it out, doesn't it? So anything that can give me that high, man, I fucking love that game. Anyway, this is not a review of that. This is a review of Astrobot. Do you think that this is something that would sell console?
So that is a very good point. That's a very good question, because, like, if not this, then what?
Hmm.
Like, okay, yes, God of War might, Spider-Man might, Horizon might, but we know now what we didn't know 5 years ago. Those games will come to PC.
Hmm.
Might take a long time, might take a year, might take 3 years. But if you're patient, they're going to come to the other platform that you already potentially own or have access to. So Astrobot might be one of the only games capable of selling the PlayStation, one of the only actual exclusives. You know what I mean? I think that this could sell the game to parents that want something for kids to play on their PlayStation. Do you know what I mean? Like, they haven't bought one yet. They brought
It's-
out the PlayStation Pro, which means the PlayStation 5 price is going to go down.
Yeah, it's the game it comes preloaded on Christmas.
That's what it should be. That is exactly what it should be. And if they don't bring out an edition that's got Astrobot preloaded for the holiday season,
Yeah.
Sony are just some of the dumbest decision makers in the world if they don't do that. Especially if they give you the Astrobot themed controller, which has his little glowing blue eyes on the little touchpad,
Yeah.
and it's just cute. It's just a cute controller, especially if you already like the character.
You're referencing Crash Bandicoot as a touch point for this game. My first console was the PS1, and I had the original Crash Bandicoot with that game, and that made me love the PlayStation.
Yep. And, like, Crash Bandicoot is in this game, and you can do a dance with him, and he's very silly, and you can slap him and he does the spin. You can give him the Aku Aku mask. And yeah, that's nice, right? Like, Parappa the Rapper's there, and I loved that. I never played Parappa the Rapper. I played the Parappa Rapper the demo disc over and over and over again. And there are just so many little things in this game where it's like, oh shit, I loved that. Oh my god, yeah, no, I'm so glad they referenced that, because, like, it feels like nobody knows about that. But then here it is in this game. Like, they put Intelligent Cube in there, which is a game that gives me nightmares. But it was in there. So yeah, I think, like, there is something so special about how this game has positioned itself, or, like, maybe not on purpose, but where this game is positioned in the kind of AAA landscape at the moment. Because it's not a dark, gritty remaster of something you've already seen before. It's not a AAA cinematic, over the shoulder, fully voice acted and performance acted like video game. It's just a pick up, play, complete a level, get a bunch of nice music and sound effects, and the characters do a stupid little floss, but, like, you kind of don't care because they are fun. They are kids. They are lighthearted. You're allowed to let them, they're allowed to floss. It's okay.
Yeah.
And there's just something delightful about having that on my PlayStation and not on my Nintendo.
Yeah.
And that feels like an energy that, up until sort of 4 years ago, you'd only expect it on a Nintendo product.
A proper console game, an actual console game.
or like an indie game like Hat in Time or something, But
Yeah. Although Hat in Time is referencing those proper console games, but yeah.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
All right, you are flying your podcast microphone-shaped spaceship when it crashes, and you have to go around and rescue all of your little Jono bots who are dressed up as various podcasters like Ira Glass and the McElroy brothers and the guy who does that design one. And Shruti Pinamaneni as well, dressed as her, or a few of the others. Anyway, you go around and you're collecting them, and on your way while you're flying around, you like to keep yourself entertained by coming up with one sentence reviews for video games. And one day you come up with an excellent one for Astrobot.
Delightful. No notes.
Lovely. So that was Astrobot. It's a PC. No, it's not a PC exclusive. It's a PlayStation exclusive. PC, fuck off. So if you pick it as your game of the year, things are going to get awkward. So before we move on to our random movie, Jonas, both you and I played Star Trucker this month. Because I played it because it was I was just looking for something to do because a stream got cancelled, and then you played it because I was playing it. I quite liked it. I don't think it's a game that I'd play hours and hours and hours of, but I enjoyed my time with it. And if someone said you've got to play a few more hours of Star Trucker, I probably would enjoy that too. How did you feel about it, Jonas?
I got to an early part in the tutorial where I had to reverse up to a building and like park. And I think it took me 45 minutes because I kept backing up my vehicle and being like, what's wrong? What's wrong? Why can't I? What's wrong? Why can't I? And it turns out that like I was using the external cameras to like aim the back of my ship correctly. And I didn't realize that I had to be in first person view and change my 2 side panels to the rear view cameras and use them to perfectly, and when I say perfectly, holy shit, I mean like this game is judging you in 3D space, whether you are 3 degrees to the left, two X coordinates too far on the Z axis, to the right, to the north, to the down, to the 360, flip it, reverse, and screw it. And I just spent so long not parking at this thing successfully that I restarted. I loaded from the latest checkpoint because I was like, I don't know what I've done. Loaded from the latest checkpoint, did it again. This time I was driving down a highway and I think I crashed into something. I think I crashed into another vehicle that was like in my lane. I didn't really get it. And that pissed me off. So I went out and repaired my ship. Went to the building, figured out how to park. That took another 10 minutes. And then I turned the game off and played something else. I didn't even attempt a delivery after that. I was like, you know what?
It's so funny because like I didn't have any of this trouble. Like I opened it up, I was like, this is Euro Truck Simulator in space. I get there's going to be some 3D maneuvering, but I reckon I can handle it. I had a couple of like little bits where I was like, I'm pretty sure I should have that, but it wouldn't let me have it. At one point, I was driving along and I thought I'd stop, and I turned to change the channel on the TV on the left-hand side, and I accidentally just ejected my load into space, like I let it go. And then I spent a solid 15 minutes trying to line myself up with a moving container and like connect to it, and I managed to do it in less time it took you to park.
So I think Space Trucker might not be my kind of game.
I think not. Do you remember when we did head to head and we did Euro Truck Simulator?
Yes.
And I feel like you had a similarly frustrating experience with that.
But I'll say I think I had a better experience with that than Space Trucker because it's a vehicle that I know how to. I know how to drive. So it had a certain amount of like, I know how to do this. It's still very difficult for me to like reverse into this factory and make no mistakes. But I know how to do this. Whereas with the space thing, it's like I have these 4 displays and they're telling me a bunch of information. I'll tell you one thing that I didn't look forward to, and I'm glad I'm not going to play the game enough to experience this, was me accidentally finding panels around my ship and discovering but the behind those panels are like 7 power systems and options and specific elements of my vehicle that I just haven't seen or interacted with yet. And I just did not look forward to the part of the game where I would need to learn what those do.
It's interesting because I quite like that, and it shows a fundamental difference between the two of us. That I opened a panel and I was like, battery, ooh, and like you were like, batteries, fuck, I'm out of here.
It was like batteries, fluid suspension system, space gravitational orb power flux, head brake, space lights left, space lights right, space lights top, brakes bad, brakes good, brakes strong, power thrusters, up, down, left, right. And I just like, I think I don't like simulators because of how like they get really nitty gritty into every little thing you can and can't do in this simulation.
I will say that one of the things I liked about Star Tracker, as someone who has enjoyed simulator games, is that it did feel to me like, because it wasn't aiming to replicate a real thing, it was able to be a bit fun and silly with those details. So like the bit I got to was that the battery for the gravity ran out on my thing. So I went over and I took the battery out to change it, and when I took it out, the whole of the gravity stopped in the truck, right? And then you're floating around trying to grab another battery and put it into the thing. And that felt like a silly abstraction of what you would normally do in those simulator games, rather than like just change a battery on a train and it just changes like a real life train battery changes. Like it had a fun, silly abstractness to it, which I thought was good. Like, and like getting into your suit and spacewalking around the edge of the truck to fix holes in the side of the truck and things. I thought those were nice little abstractions of what you'd normally get in a simulator game.
Also, I just saw that the game like loves to just fine you for random bullshit.
Yeah.
And I just thought, no, I'm not going to navigate that very well.
All right. Well, Star Trekker. That's a lukewarm recommendation from me, and a not recommendation from Jonas, I guess.
Not my kind of game. If it's your kind of game, go for it.
Persona 3 you've put down here.
Yeah, so Persona 3 is an old game it got remade into Persona 3 Reload. So that should say Persona 3 Reload, really, shouldn't it? It's on Xbox Game Pass, and I decided to basically boot it up the other day, and I'm making my way through it very slowly. But I wanted to bring it up just because, so Persona games are known for being very visually stylish. Holy shit, Persona 3 Reload is very visually stylish. Like the pause menu being this like really cool pop art of a character floating upside down in water, and like you're like all the different menu items are sort of like things on their mind. And the music, Persona 5 has great soundtrack. I love Persona 5, I love the soundtrack of Persona 5. But like Persona 3's music, that's not that's not been redone, it's not been replaced. They've just like, it's the soundtrack from 3 remastered. It's just really fucking good. It's a great game. I am looking forward to playing a lot more of it. Hopefully, like I will chip away at this. Like this will just be a game that I can sort of play when I don't think I'm going to go into the living room and play the PlayStation, or I'm not going to play something with anyone in particular. Persona games are great. Persona 3 looks and feels great, and it is tiding me over until Metaphor ReFantasio comes out later this month.
What is Persona?
Huh. Okay. Persona is a Japanese RPG series made by Atlas. They're the developers. They carry a common theme. So 3, 4, and 5 are the only ones that I really see people talking about. I don't know much about Persona 1 and 2.
Right.
You always play a teenager in school, and you and a bunch of friends all get the ability to summon like stands, like ghostly monster angel things that fight for you. And in all of these games, basically, there is some sort of like cryptic evil thing that is going on in the world, and only you kids can fight it because you've got these powers. And the game swaps between you doing the JRPG battle stuff and going into dungeons and fighting monsters, and daytime simulator, like school life simulator, where it's
Right.
like, it's Monday morning. What are you going to do? Are you going to go to class or are you going to go buy a milkshake? And like, there are benefits to either decision. And it's like, it is Saturday. Who do you want to hang out with? The jock, the girl that likes book club, or your grandfather who is passing away in his bed? Like, and this school life simulator element kind of like adds this pacing to the game where it's like it's a very slow game, takes ages to complete, but it has to end eventually because you can only make so many decisions because there are only so many days in your school calendar. So often there's this feeling of like, oh man, I hope I did the right thing on Sunday by going to the restaurant and going for the 2-for-1 yakitori bowl with my teacher. And that's a lot of fun. I find that calendar school life simulator a lot of fun. And then you go do the JRPG shit, and that's fun as well.
I'm just looking at our master spreadsheet, and you reviewed Persona 5 Royal in 2020. So I somehow that didn't stick with me, but fair enough.
Somehow.
All right. Well, that's the game section. Let's move on to our Netflix randomizer, shall we? And talk about a little movie called Death of a Gentleman, which was the randomizer movie that we got last month, and it's a documentary about corruption in the sort of governing bodies of international cricket, and how there's sort of two ways that cricket is played: Test match cricket, which plays over 5 days, and 2020, which is a significantly shortened version of cricket, which is sort of more popular with TV audiences. And it starts off sort of delving into Test cricket and how Test cricket is not being funded in the way it should be, and how it's sort of slowly going out of fashion, and the sort of documentary makers are worried that it may eventually die. And then quite a long way into the movie starts to move into this idea that like the people who run the governing bodies, particularly in India, are clearly extracting money from the system and are quite deeply corrupt. Jonas, what did you think of this movie?
Yeah, I thought it was okay. So I think it's a good subject. I think it's like the subject is interesting. They are onto something, and I am learning something about cricket. Like I'm learning a lot about cricket. I didn't know about like any of this, and it is like it's well. I don't want to say like well presented, but I do want to say like well filmed, in that there is loads of great footage. There's loads of great interviews. There's a lot of like these guys like went through really incredible effort to like actually tell a compelling story with all the evidence necessary to kind of convince you, the audience, of this story. And I think it does do that. And I think it's maybe longer than it needs to be, and I think it sometimes really struggles to get to sort of the train goes off its rails, and it really struggles to self-right itself and get back on track and kind of remind you why this story is worth telling. But overall, yeah, I cared about it more than I thought I would.
I felt like it was aimed at people who already liked cricket, and maybe came to it from the more popular 2020 cricket, and wanted to, and it was trying to convince them that maybe you should give Test cricket a go. And as someone who comes from the point of view of not caring about any kind of cricket, it didn't do a good job of telling me why Test cricket should still live.
Yes.
But the corruption stuff was interesting. It was just so late in the movie. Like the first 2/3 of the movie is about Test cricket and about how much they personally like Test cricket, and then it suddenly goes, oh, and also there's loads of corruption.
It has this problem where it's called Death of a Gentleman because it's trying to talk about the gentleman sport and the ethos of cricket, right? And it talks a little bit about where cricket came from or how it made its way to different countries. It talked a little bit about how different countries currently interact with Test cricket. But yeah, one thing it kept doing was like it had all these quotes of people being like, cricket, it's the gentleman's sport. And none of them really describing where that ethos comes from or how it's maintained. Do you know what I mean? It's like there's like a good 30 minutes to an hour of people telling me that there is like good sportsmanship in cricket, but not telling me what that means or where it comes from or what good sportsmanship in cricket actually looks like.
I think that I think that there's a documentary there's a documentary to be made about what Test cricket is and why it has any kind of cultural relevance that then leads into the corruption stuff. This is not that. This is a documentary that starts from the premise of we all love Test cricket. We know that it's a game for British gentlemen, but can you imagine that the people run it aren't gentlemen? And you go, well, yeah, yeah, I can imagine that because I live in the world and I've heard stories of FIFA, so I can expand that to any like sport that has money involved in it somewhere. I think that they have gotten some incredible interviews that make certain people look incredibly slimy. In particular, the head of the British International Cricket Consortium.
Giles
He's-
Clark
He's
is
the
a
slimiest
grade
motherfucker.
a grade A. See you next Tuesday. Absolutely.
It's incredible
like-
how, like, from the moment they put the camera on him, he cannot help but exude asshole. It's incredible.
He starts his interview off like rolling his tongue in his mouth in this like
Yes!
really weird way, like
Yes.
and you're like Giles, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Also, okay, I have never seen a person publicly that reminds me of Boris Johnson.
Yeah.
I just don't. I
Yeah.
don't think those people really exist until I see Giles Clark.
I think he reminds you of he is a cartoon of a like awful businessman, right? He fully is an awful like a cartoon. He's like at one point one of the guys asks him about like this controversy and how it affects the game, and he goes, "I don't think anybody cares. You know, I just don't think anybody cares." And it's like, well, they obviously do because he's asking you the question in this moment. What you're saying is you don't care, and that's not the same as the people that you represent not caring. It like he
And-
made my skin crawl, and he may have been the best bit of the whole documentary because he was so awful.
He's such a good villain.
He really is.
You love to hate him, and I hate the fact that he's a real person
Yeah.
who is really a president of a real thing.
He's not
you know
just
what I
written
mean?
for the show. He genuinely is a real guy.
Yeah, he's a genuine piece of shit. I love the bits. We're like going like way off topic, but there's just like these bits where Giles walks in a room and sees the journalists
Yeah.
and can be heard saying quietly to somebody else, "That fucking idiot Sam's here. Oh my
What the
god,
fuck, Sam's here? Yeah.
get them away from me. Get them away from me." And just genuinely being like, "Oh my god, what a slimy
Oh, he's
fucking
so
character."
awful.
Yeah.
I think that in terms of production, it definitely feels a bit student projecty, and a bit sort of like rushed Kickstartery. They did say partway through it was a Kickstarter film, but they, they had a impressive amount of footage, and they had some really impressive interviews, but there's just production mistakes all over the place. It's quite deeply indulgent. They wanted to take their time with everything. There's like temp voiceover left in with the new voiceover layered over the top and not properly mixed and things. Like it's a very strange like it feels like they sort of hit the end of their money and just released it, and it could have gone through a few more editing passes and QA checks, I think.
Yeah, there's part of me really is like, wow, I can't believe this made it to the point that it's at, because it's it's on Netflix. I can watch this as like a feature length movie, and yet it's kind of unbelievable that someone didn't just watch it from start to finish before someone clicked the upload button and said, "We're not uploading this for the following reasons.
Yeah.
You have 4 scenes that clearly haven't gone through their final draft, or they haven't had the thing removed from them that they need to have removed. That's all it takes, right? Like there are bad movies that make it out there that are they
They're
are the
finished
final
movies,
version.
yeah.
Yeah, they're the final version of what they think they want to be. And yeah, it's a shame because I think with very small tweaks, this could easily have been a documentary that you and I could be glowing about.
Yeah, I think so. I think
Yeah.
with a like a tough editor, like someone who could sit down and really just strip the the fluff out of it and really make it a lean product. I think this could be a really good 45-minute movie. And I think that that's I'm being pretty brutal there because that's saying cut half the movie. But like it strikes me as people who are too close to the movie and have no one else to guide them on it.
Yeah.
Like that I imagine they did show it to family and friends, but what you need to do is show it to an editor, right? Like and I think that's what they're missing here. It has heart because it's made by people who care, but it doesn't have finesse.
Because you can tell that there are bits where they made the effort, so they don't want to cut it. One of the
Yes.
small things they do right is like they've got this mascot that they seem to dress someone up in at random points. They make a T-shirt that says free cricket. They put it on the mascot, and then it's implied that the mascot stands outside a building when a major international sort of cricket organization meeting is going on. But for one, we never see that T-shirt actually presented to the businessman that would kind of maybe care about, that it's intended for. So in the end, it just feels like they shot that just for us, for me. I don't know, but like that's something that they clearly made an effort to do and film. So then I guess they didn't want to waste it, so they put it in. And I think there's so much of that where it's just like the two writers are thinking, oh, we put in loads of effort, so we should definitely put that in. But that doesn't make it. That actually doesn't add value to the message they're trying to say.
I think there's a lot of stuff in there which is which is exactly like that, which is like, yeah, it looks beautiful, it looks great. Have a third less of it. Like, just keep it lean, just get your message across. We don't need to spend 45 minutes learning why you love test cricket. Like, let's get to the meat of this, why you care about this in this moment.
There is
not the worst thing we've watched, not the best thing we've watched.
No, there is just to make sure we mention it as well. Like there is an entire C plot going on where they're like sort of reporting on the career of Ed Cohen, who I guess is or was at some point a famous and successful Australian cricketer.
Yeah.
But like the story that they follow with Ed Cohen is like it's kind of there, I guess, to remind you that like, hey, look at this guy who loves cricket and look at him doing test cricket. And don't you remember test cricket? Do you remember test cricket? We were talking about it earlier. It's really good. We love it. I feel like Ed Cohen is just there to be like, hey, let's follow the story of one actual cricketer, like a player, just so that every time we mention this aspect of cricket, we can cut to this player and show them interacting with that element. But yeah, it's not a particularly interesting story or player to follow. He wasn't a cricketer, then he started cricket, then he got into cricket and he did pretty well, and then he did like pretty badly in one quite important game in his career, and that basically just crushed his career.
I think you could have done a short movie about him and a short movie about corruption, and making one long movie about it was too much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, this definitely feels like, you can tell that their vision changed halfway through, but they still made it one ultimate product. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it feels like the beginning of the podcast documentary doesn't accommodate for where the documentary is going to end up.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, yeah, I think it's sort of mid-table, maybe low mid-table for us, maybe out of that list. But it's no Aloha or Byzantine Cat, so count our lucky stars. I was actually thinking earlier, like it. I would like to do funny bad movies from Netflix randomizer evening, where I introduce people to the Byzantine Cat and Aloha. But I probably won't put Death of a Gentleman in that list.
Yeah, fair enough.
Right. We need to pick one for next month, and Laura isn't here. She's off doing a job. So instead, we're gonna have to do a Dark Lord.
You have to give me a warning when you're going to do this stuff on me, James.
Well, we could just roll a dice or something. Should we roll a dice?
Yes. I'm looking around at words to see if I can find anything that
Let's roll a dice, because I don't think there's too many of us here today. So let's just roll a dice, and have you got a D8 to hand?
Oh, do I? Dungeon
Fully
Master
made-
Jonas.
Fully made Laura sound like a gangster. Oh, she's
Laura
2
is a
minutes away. Well, I'm afraid that we need to do it now. So
Yeah, we're not going to stall for 2 minutes, are we?
Well, it'd be longer.
Come
than
on,
that, 'cause
Laura.
then she'd have to
Laura,
write it all up.
who do you think we are, Laura? Huh? Huh? You think we got 2 minutes to spare in this 3-hour and 79-day podcast? All right, I have several dice ready.
All right. Can you roll me a D8 then, please?
Yes, I show you the D8,
Lovely.
and just so you can appreciate
Right,
all its sides.
I've done the randomizer, and I haven't looked at them. So
Okay. I'm rolling a dice. The result is the number 8.
8. Okay. Okay. So
The final film.
here's what we could have had. We could have had Monty Python live at the Hollywood Bowl.
Okay.
We could have had Asvin's Malayalam, which I'm pretty sure is the language. We've been through this before.
Yeah, sure.
We could have had Tum Hi Ho, Savvy.
Tum Hi Ho.
We could have had Paul Merson, Football, Gambling, and Me. We could have had Stolen, which has a picture of a girl with a reindeer. We could have had The Last Witch Hunter. And we could have had El Infierno. But instead, we have Day Zero, A City Without Water.
Day 0.
City Without Water.
A.
Einstad on Wasser. Vonang aus Südafrika.
Okay. Is that Dutch? Is that a Dutch film in South Africa?
Maybe. The documentary examines the cause and
Germany.
consequences of the water shortage in Cape Town, as well as government efforts to solve the crisis.
Yeah. That's Afrikaans,
It's
not Dutch.
Afrikaans,
Well,
not Dutch.
it says country of origin, Germany. Language, German.
Oh.
Einstad on Wasner Warnung aus Südafrika.
Okay, so Day Zero, A City Without Water.
Okay.
We're
Well,
gonna learn
it's
about a water shortage in Cape Town.
cool. I mean, I won't be able to put it to good use because my parents are in Johannesburg. I haven't been to Cape Town in a long time. I really want to go to Cape Town.
Well,
Jamie, good news.
Next time you go there, you can tell them all about how they didn't have water for a while.
I can tell them about their water shortage. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. Yes. That's my favorite thing to do to people who are in countries that I don't live in that have water shortages.
Yeah.
Right. You've just pasted the Netflix link. I will paste the name and the IMDb page. It's less than an hour, so you know that pleases this old boy.
Yeah. Like my favorite movies are the ones that are shorter than an hour.
Jamie,
Hmm.
I watch. Do you think of me as someone who has a lot of free time or not a lot of free time?
I think that you're someone who, if you want to do something, you will put the time in.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe you're right.
Yeah, I am right. Yeah.
I don't have a lot of free time, especially not right now.
Yeah.
So imagine that I watch 24 movies a year.
Well,
and half of them against my will.
well, but Jonas, it is now like we've got 5 weeks till the next podcast. It's the longest the longest section we have between podcasts.
The amount of time between now and then isn't the problem. It just is. It just isn't the problem. It just never is the problem. It's the presence. It's the presence of this activity that I like. You know, and I will always do it, but I will always grumble about it.
I think my favorite thing about all this anger is that I sprung this idea on you during the first podcast we ever did without asking you about it before we did it.
The greatest assault on my freedoms you've ever committed.
And now for what, 5 years? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're in our 6th year. For 6 years,
Jamie, that's 60 films. That's 60 films.
60?
Over 5 times 12, 60.
Yeah.
So that's
60.
over 60 films that you have forced me.
66. Yeah, 60.
Well, when the year ends, it'll be 62.
70
this is
films. 70 films we've done.
72.
What?
Sorry, 72. 72.
It's too late in the day. I cannot be doing the maths. Well, anyway, I'm glad you continue to do it with me, Jonas. It's been a pleasure. It's been an honor. And I look forward to speaking to you next month for not Death of a Gentleman, City Without Water. We're going to wrap it up here. Thank you for joining us, everybody. This was a podcast. If you're watching the live version of the podcast, the video version, you can catch us on audio. Just search the Bunyip Review on all good podcast sites. It usually comes out like later in the month. And then if you're listening to the audio version of this podcast, you can catch us on the first Tuesday of every month on twitch.tv/The Bunyip Man, where you can see us perform live and you can ask us questions in chat and all that kind of stuff. And it's all really good fun. And we've been really consistent with doing the first Tuesday of every month for the past few months. So, yeah, it's likely to be that day. But if you can't get there on, or no, not that. If we can't do it for whatever reason, we'll post on Twitter at The Bunyip Man, on Facebook, search The Bunyip Man, or on Instagram, where you can find me at The Bunyip Gram. And you can find out whether we're going to be live from all those places. And at the end of November, I really need to remember this date. I think it's the 23rd.
23rd and 24th.
The 23rd and 24th of November, we're going to be doing our 24-hour podcast, a charity live stream for the charity Safe in Our World. So please do come join us for that, because it's going to be really good fun. That'll be live on twitch.tv/The Bunyip Man on the 23rd of November from 3 p.m. GMT for 24 whole hours. It was great last year, and it's going to be great this year, I'm sure. We've got lots of good things lined up. Jonas, do you have a tag you can recommend me?
Yes, a particular tag.
Yeah,
yes,
brand.
Well, the brand is Teg, James.
Oh, no.
They're all
no, I have off-brand
only
tags.
What?
Yeah.
James, don't get the off-brand tags. Only tags do tags, you know? That's what they say. That's the whole brand. Tags do tags.
Yeah, I know. But, you know, they're cheaper and they're nearly as good.
Okay. Have any of them made you feel as good as a real tag, though, James? Like,
No,
really?
But I'm not rolling in money like you.
You're right. I am the world's most affluent tag collector.
Then not the brand, because you don't buy off brand, you're a fancy boy, but this particular tag, the line of tag that you like.
I recommend the one with the little bubbles all around, the bubbled tag.
Lovely. And I recommend the one you put up your bum. Good night, everybody. Thanks for listening.
They're the same.
See you later, everyone.
Good night.
All right, that's a podcast. Thanks for joining us, everyone. It still ended up being the same length every time.
Actually, us finishing 10 minutes before 11 is pretty good, because it means the final podcast will actually come out to something closer to 2.5 hours.
Okay, all right. Well, there you go. Yeah, I'm proud of us.
There you go. There
The
you
timer
go.
system works. I do like that we gave longer discussion to the longer reviews, so they became extra long reviews.
We gave like quite a lot of discussion to the games. I think that's because we were feeling so affluent in time,
Yeah,
and then we gave quite a lot of discussion to Star Trucker as well.
yeah, we did actually. Well, I thought that was a good one. You two are size queens who just love a nice long podcast.
I
Yeah.
also want to point out that I really wish we did watch The Last Witch Hunter, because it's Vin Diesel going around being like a fantasy slayer.
Oh. Oh,
It
that sounds all
looks
right.
it looks like it could have been awful.
I want another awful one. I was thinking like because Beth really likes watching bad movies, and I was thinking next time she wants to watch a bad movie, I might put on the Byzantine Cat.
Like when I watch a bad movie, I want it to be like Hollywood produced bad movie.
Hmm.
It makes me sad when it's like 3 people in a basement bad movie.
Yeah, but the Byzantine
know?
Cat was so strange. It was such a
That
weird
was-
movie.
That one is quite special, definitely.
But yeah, all right. Aloha then. Aloha is what you're after.
I quite liked Aloha bad movie. Yeah, that
Aloha was
fun.
great. I want another Aloha. I really, really do.
Elijah Wood is in this. Yeah.
Anyway, have you got anything you want to promote before we go?
Done the 24-hour podcast. Have I got anything I want to promote? Not particularly. Guys, I might try and stream more, but I'm not going to tell you in advance. So, if you're already following me, turn on that notification thing, because it's not like you're going to get more than one notification a month. That's just dumb.
I'm gonna promote a stream with you in it because on Tuesday next week
Oh,
we're
yeah.
going to be starting our Dokapon Kingdom playthrough.
Kingdom.
So join us on the 8th for Dokapon Kingdom. And if you're about, you said you might join us for Baldur's Gate for our evil playthrough as well on the 30th.
So that was on the 30th.
Mm.
Isn't that Spookums week?
No, because I'm not available on actual Halloween. We're doing Spookums week the week before.
I'll put it on my calendar because apparently I didn't do that last time.
And then the 24th is the Town of Salem. So for us, tomorrow is Akami HD, which was recommended by Jonas, I think. So I'm going to be playing a bit of that. And then on Thursday it'll be Stardew Valley. We're back to that. All of the schedule is up on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, so you can find it all up there. And the Spookums week is this month, and that's going to be the week of the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. And Spookums week this year is going to be Sims 4. There's like a new Grim Reaper challenge, so Maddie and I will be doing that. Sylvie and I will be playing Killer Frequency, which is like a game where you're a radio call-in DJ, and people call in and they're being like murdered by serial killers, and you've got to help them. And then on the 24th, we'll be doing Town of Salem 2, which is basically like a free game that's like, it's basically werewolf. So we're going to try and get as many of us lot who are on stream as possible to play, and do a big Town of Salem game for you. If we can get everyone together. But I think there'll be a minimum of people on that, so if people aren't available on the actual day, then maybe we'll come up with something else as backup. Yeah. Right, I'm going to hop off.
Nice.
But thank you for joining us, everybody.
I'm looking forward to Killer Frequency. Actually, I've heard good things about it.
Yeah, and it's on deal at the moment. It went down to like a tenner, so I would recommend if you fancy playing it, grabbing it now. We're gonna do a raid. I think that at the moment, Kirsten is doing a big subathon thing.
Oh, I was watching his Kirsteners before we started streaming. It was really funny. He's got Elder Scrolls on with some silly modifiers.
The crowd control thing, yeah.
You can spend coins to make awful things happen. It's a lot of fun.
I think I've got quite a few coins lined up. I've never spent any coins on this channel, so I can come in and see what I can do.
Yep.
Right. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll catch you tomorrow for some Okami HD. See you later.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.